Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐼𝐼𝐼𝐼 on Wattpad. Now let's start. Third person, the green-haired teen stood still in the rain at his mother's grave. He didn't care that the cast on his broken arm was falling apart from the water. He just stared blankly at the gravestone. It had her date of death, which was a month prior to this day. He felt utterly guilty, like her death had been all his fault. Or it should have been him. A man placed his hand on the teen's shoulder. "Come on. Your uncle is waiting for you," the man said. Midoriya dawdled towards the car. His mother had died in an accident he was involved in. It was not the boy's fault. In fact, it had nothing to do with him. A truck was going full speed at a red light. And although Midoriya was standing next to his mother, only she got the full blow. Midoriya only got half of what she did. You see, she was closer to the truck at impact. Midoriya believes he should have been the one closer to the truck. Even though he was put in an induced coma and broke several bones, he'd rather his mother in his place. The man drove the teen to a small house, then skirted him to the front door. The man knocked, and the person who opened the door was another man. He had green hair, quite like Midoriya's, but he looked middle-aged. "Hello, Mr. Midoriya." The man spoke. "I'm Izuku's social worker for now." He shook hands with the other man. "Oh, Izuku, you're all grown up. Come in," the man said with a smile. The two were invited into the house. Midoriya sat silently at the table, fiddling with the string on his jumper. The older man sat cups of tea on the table. "Now, Midoriya-kun, you're happy taking in Izuku as your own?" the man asked. "Yes," Midoriya said. The man slid some papers across the table, then was discussing things with the teen's uncle. But he sat silently, twirling the string on his finger and picking at the plaster on his cast. He didn't feel good. He felt like throwing up. He felt like he'd burden his new guardian. "Izuku, I'm leaving now, buddy. You've got my card, call me if you need," he said, then he stood up. Midoriya and Izuku waved goodbye to the man, then stood awkwardly at the front door. "Hey, Izuku. You can just call me Hiraku." He broke the silence. Midoriya glanced up at his uncle. "Hey." Midoriya mumbled. Hiraku ruffled up his hair, then walked off into the kitchen. "What would you like to eat? This is your first day discharged from hospital, right?" Hiraku mentioned. "Yeah. I don't feel hungry." Midoriya shyly mumbled. "Really? Do you feel sick?" he asked. "A little. Probably from the induced coma." Midoriya mentioned. "Okay. So you don't want to eat at all then?" he questioned. Midoriya just nodded. "Well, I'll take you to your room. Sorry, my house isn't very big." Hiraku walked down a passage, Midoriya followed. "My house was a similar size." "I don't mind." Midoriya mumbled. Hiraku opened a door. "Here. It's not very big," he said. Midoriya gazed into the room as he slowly walked into it. There was a single bed, a small desk, and a built-in small wardrobe. White curtains hung down beside a window. Out the window there was a small courtyard. It was a small room, but it looked comfy. Midoriya smiled a little as he looked at his uncle. "It's a lovely room." "Thank you," he gratefully said. His uncle put on a proud smile. "Well then, if you're going to sleep, I'll leave you be. My room's down the hallway if you need me, toilet's closest to your room." He smiled. "Thank you," Midoriya said. "Bye then. Oh, and your social worker person said he's taking you to your house tomorrow, so you can get your belongings." Hiraku smiled as he closed the door. Midoriya stood still for a moment, then closed the curtains by the window. It was only around 7 p.m., but he didn't feel very well. Truth be told, he didn't want to return home. When he awoke from his induced coma a few days ago, he was told about his mother. Ever since then he hasn't felt well when he thought about her. She was all he had. Returning home would make him feel the same guilt and queasiness, like anxiety that won't go away. His child supporter had told him his uncle was taking him in, since he was the only family Izuku had left. Even though they had only met a few times when Izuku was younger, Hiraku felt sorry for the teen. Midoriya tried to pull his jumper off, struggling when he had to get it past the cast. But the cast slipped off with the jumper. The teen gasped, then stared at his arm. It was bruised but not swollen much. He picked up the cast and stared at it. His arm was thinner than the cast was. He decided it was probably because of swelling going down. He put down the cast, then walked out of his room. He found Hiraku in the kitchen, cooking. "Uncle Hiraku," Izuku mumbled. Hiraku glanced over at Izuku with a smile. "What's up?" he asked. Izuku held up his arm, with a shy expression on his face. "My cast slipped off," Midoriya mumbled. "Oh." Hiraku turned the stove off, then opened one of the cupboards. He took out a bandage and walked over to the young teen. "Do you mind if I wrap it up?" he said. Midoriya shook his head. They both sat down at the table. Hiraku gently held Midoriya's arm and wrapped it up tight. Midoriya tried not to show signs that it really hurt, but Hiraku noticed. "Would you like some acetaminophen?" Hiraku asked. Midoriya shook his hands. No, I'm okay." "Sorry," Midoriya mumbled. Hiraku chuckled and stood up. "All right then. You can watch a movie if you'd like," he said. And so it began. Izuku went to his home and collected his belongings, then settled into his new life with Hiraku. He was on bed rest for a week, before he had to go back to school. He had to transfer to a new school, since his old one was too far away. Not that he minded much, he didn't really have friends in his old school. He was bullied by a family friend, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, so everyone stayed away from Midoriya in fear of being the next victim. Midoriya's new school was quite casual, and he was very nervous, but he decided he would try his best to not disappoint his new guardian. And it was Monday, the third week of the last school term before graduation to high school. Third person Midoriya was sitting at his new desk in his new school. He'd had a small introduction before he settled down. No one really paid attention to him, which he didn't mind. Their first class was English in the same room. Midoriya liked English. He found it quite easy even if it were a different language to his own. At his previous school, he did extension work for a couple subjects since he had potential, but this school didn't do them. All the stuff the English teacher talked about made sense to him. He noted down the work anyway, keeping his page nice and neat in the process. At the end of the class, there was a break. At this school, there were 3 lessons a day, each separated by a break each. Midoriya sat silently at his desk. He still didn't have much of an appetite, so he just noted down extra English into his book. The English teacher walked up to him. "You're the transfer student. I heard you've missed a month and a bit of school," she said. Midoriya looked up at her and pulled a forced but sincere smile. "Yeah. I was in a small accident." Midoriya mumbled. "Oh, I hope you're okay now. If you need help, feel free to ask me," she said with a smile, then looked at his book. "Hey, you're actually good at English. That's very neat writing," she mentioned. Midoriya looked at his book, then up at her. "And not really. But I did extension English at my old school, so I guess I'm okay." Midoriya put on a nervous smile. The teacher seemed happy, as if no one ever took her class seriously. "That's great. Well, I'll see you for tomorrow's class," she said as she walked away. Midoriya let out a small huff, releasing the little anxiety he felt when he had to socialize. The break only lasted 20 minutes, then the bell rung and the students piled back into the class, along with a math teacher. Midoriya also had done extension math, so the material the teacher was teaching seemed quite easy to him. "Open your textbooks and do the questions on the board," the teacher said. Midoriya flinched, then slowly raised his hand. While the students chattered and did the work, the teacher walked up to him. "You're the transfer student, right? Do you need help with the work? You've missed a little," he asked. "Oh, no, I understand the work. I just haven't got textbooks yet," Midoriya shyly mumbled. "Ah, I see. They should be in the library. You'll get a letter when they are ready to pick up." The teacher glanced at the person at the table next to him. "Momo, can you share your textbook with Midoriya?" the teacher said. A girl with black hair pulled into a spiked ponytail looked up at the teacher, then towards the new kid. "I don't mind," she said. She stood up, then pushed her table next to Midoriya's and sat back down. The teacher walked over to help other students. I'm Momo Yaoyorozu, you're Izuku Midoriya, right? She said. I am, yes. Nice to meet you. Midoriya mumbled with a smile. Momo stared at him for a bit. He looked a little intimidated. You seem mature. All the boys in this school are perverts. You haven't even looked at my... She trailed off, thinking of the most respectful was to mention her melons. Midoriya innocently asked, tilting his head to the side. She looked at him a bit longer, then smiled and let out a quiet chuckle. Never mind. You seem nice, she said as she opened her textbook in the middle of their desks. Thanks for sharing your book with me. He smiled, then struggled to neatly rule up his page. He couldn't hold the ruler down with his bad arm. His injured arm felt horrible when he put pressure on it, even though he was told it was good for healing. He didn't get a new cast. The doctors said he could stay in a bandage, then a sling at night. What happened to your arm? She asked. Just an accident. It's broken. He mumbled with a nervous chuckle. Broken? Shouldn't it be in a cast? She asked. The cast slipped off. The doctor said I was fine without it. Okay, she said. Midoriya thought for a moment, then held his elbow on the ruler. He ruled his page up with a red pen, then grabbed a black pen and wrote down the question. The two of them silently worked on the math, then after around 10 minutes, they both raised their hands. They looked at each other. Are you stuck? They said simultaneously. They both smiled and laughed a little. The teacher stopped in front of their desk. Need help? He asked. Oh, I'm finished the questions. Midoriya said. Me too. Momo added. Oh, I knew Momo would be fast. Do you like math? He asked Midoriya, then started checking his work. I did extension math at my old school, so I guess so. Midoriya mumbled. Oh, that's great. Then, you both can work on questions 8 to 16. He said. The two students nodded and got back to work. The bell for lunch went before either of them could finish all the questions. Everyone in the class ran out of the room. Midoriya and Yaoyorozu calmly packed up their things, then they both pulled out lunches and silently ate. They were the only ones left in the classroom. A girl ran into the classroom, but to Midoriya she was unfamiliar. Not someone he remembered seeing in the class. Momo, why didn't you come to the cafeteria? The girl asked. Because it's too noisy there. It's quiet here. Momo replied. The girl glanced at Midoriya, then stormed up to his table. You're only here to hit on Momo, aren't you, pervert? She spat. Hit. Why would I hit someone? Midoriya choked. No, Mina, it's fine. He's a new student, and he's really innocent. Momo explained. Oh really? She glanced towards the frightened teen. Sorry, new kid. All the boys here are perverts. Are really? He mumbled. Most. But if Momo likes you, that means you're decent. Mina sighed. Momo let out a sigh. Sorry, Midoriya, she does that. It's fine. Where's the bathroom? Midoriya asked. Down the hallway to the left. You'll see signs on the wall. Momo explained. Thanks. Midoriya put away his empty lunchbox, then stood up. He bowed slightly before walking out the classroom and down the hallway. Girls to him seemed scary. Third person after Midoriya used the bathroom, he stood by the sink, washing his hands as best he could with a broken arm. It hurt a bit. No, a lot. My new kid. Someone said. Midoriya turned towards the voice. There was a kid from his class there. How'd you get close with Momo? He asked. You. We shared a math textbook. Midoriya scratched his head. The boy clicked his tongue. If you won't tell, I'll bash you. I've already claimed Momo. You're getting too close. The boy cracked his knuckles. Midoriya flinched. He remembered his old friend doing this, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Well, Katsuki only mentally abused him. He never actually hit the boy. Yaoyorozu is her own person. You can't claim someone. Midoriya mentioned. The taller boy launched his fist into Midoriya's stomach. Midoriya coughed at impact. He fell down to the ground, instinctively putting out his hands to catch himself. His broken arm sent pain shocks through his body, and he felt like screaming. The taller boy kicked Midoriya in the chest. Midoriya covered his mouth. In the accident, he had broken multiple ribs, and they still hadn't completely healed themselves. He felt like another kick would break his ribs again. Stay away from my beach. He spat, then he left the bathroom. Midoriya remained still on the floor, before finally standing up. He walked to the sink and stared into the mirror. After washing his face, he made his way back to the classroom. There were more people now, also the guy who hit him. Midoriya sat down, Momo and Mina looked at him. You took a while. Mina mentioned. I got lost. Midoriya smiled. Oh, you'll work it out sooner or later. Mina smiled. Midoriya glanced towards the boy who hit him. What's that boy's name? The tall one sitting on the desk. Midoriya murmured. Him. He's Minato. He's a bit of a bully and a big pervert. Stay away from him. Momo explained. Midoriya stared towards him. It wasn't long before the bell went. Their last lesson of the day was PE. Midoriya obviously couldn't do it, so the teacher told him to go wait in the infirmary and get ice. Midoriya did as he said, and went to the infirmary. The nurse was nice. She let him rest in one of the beds while the ice sat on his arm. He just daydreamed about nothing really. Eventually he fell asleep. But, like most nights, he had the same nightmare. A nightmare where he watched his mother get killed again and again, until everything goes black. He woke up in the infirmary in cold sweat. He looked around, then let out a sigh and sat up. The nurse poked her head around the corner and looked at him. Did you have a nightmare? You were tossing and turning. She said. What's the time? He mumbled. It's 2, school ends at 3, you can go if you'd like. Midoriya hopped out of the bed. He bowed slightly then walked off. When he got to the classroom, some of his classmates were there packing their stuff. He walked to his desk and packed his stuff into his bag. How's your arm? Momo asked. Midoriya looked up at her and smiled. It's okay. Can I see? She asked. Midoriya held out his arm. It was all bandaged up. Momo carefully held it in her hands. Wow. It feels swollen. Shouldn't you have it in a cast still? She asked. I don't know. Midoriya shrugged. She pressed down on his wrist. Midoriya flinched a bit. Sorry. I didn't mean for that to hurt. I was wondering if it was numb. You see, I want to study medicine. I've never really had a friend with a broken arm. Oh, are we friends? She smiled. Oh. Yeah, if you don't mind me as a friend. If you want I can take the bandage off. Midoriya smiled. Really? Momo's eyes lit up. Midoriya carefully unraveled the bandage. There was a bump that showed where the break was from swelling, and his arm was pale and bruised. That looks painful. She mentioned. It's not too bad. He mumbled. Midoriya wrapped his arm up with a little grin. He'd never had a real friend before. The bell rung, signifying the end of the day. Oh, I have to get going. I'll see you tomorrow, Midoriya. Momo smiled, then she swung her bag over her shoulder and ran off. Midoriya waved as he slipped his blazer on, then pulled his bag onto his back. A nerd. Minato yelled. Midoriya glanced over at the boy, his heart leapt out of his chest. Minato walked up to the smaller teen and grabbed his broken arm. Midoriya flinched. Let go. That hurts. Midoriya spat. Minato gripped onto his arm tight. What did I say about getting close with my beach? He growled. Midoriya's eyes went glassy as they filled with tears. I told you she's not yours. You can't claim someone. Midoriya clenched his teeth and ripped his arm away. Minato grabbed Midoriya's blazer then tugged on it. Look, Brett. I don't give a SHT what you say. She called you her friend. You can't be friend with her, you're a loser. He shouted, then he threw Midoriya onto the ground, tearing his blazer. The classroom door opened, and their math teacher walked in. What's going on here? The teacher demanded. A student came running saying there was a fight. Minato clicked his tongue and grabbed his bag. This school is full of gots. He snapped, before running out of the classroom. The teacher glanced at Midoriya. Minato is a rude kid. Did he hurt you? The teacher asked. Midoriya said nothing. He just stared at the tear in his new blazer. In the expensive blazer that had just been brought for him. Oh no, look, I'll call his parents and tell them he needs to buy you a new one. The teacher sympathized. And no, it's okay. That'll probably stir up more commotion. Midoriya stammered. He stood himself up and held onto his arm. I have to get going anyway. Sorry. Midoriya mumbled. Are you sure you're okay? I mean, you're new. I don't want you feeling scared to come to school again. The teacher explained. It's fine, it's okay, don't worry. I'm used to this anyway. Midoriya frowned as he hurried past the teacher. He left the school as fast as he could. His chest felt tight, and his bottled-up stress and anxiety was on the brink of bursting. He felt as if he couldn't breathe. When he made it to his uncle's house, he stumbled around in his bag to find his keys, then unlocked the door. He shut the door behind him, then rushed to the bathroom and threw up. He felt sick with anxiety. He didn't want another school term of torment. He'd already damaged the blazer he had gotten. And they were expensive too. He couldn't bear the pain of making his uncle buy another. He scavenged through the cupboards, before finally pulling out a sewing kit. After slipping of his blazer, he began sewing. The tear wasn't very big, he believed he could get away with sewing it back up. Luckily his mother had taught him how to sew. As he was stitching it back up, he accidentally pricked himself with the pin. But instead of it hurting, it made him feel a sense of relief. The bad thoughts in his head rushed out, being replaced by the sense of pain. And it felt nice. Let's just say that small prick was the start of something horrible. Third person, it had been a week. School was the same every day. Midoriya would get there, share textbooks with Momo and get abused by Minato. He didn't mind. As long as he didn't bother his new friend or his uncle, he was fine. When his anxiety was high, he would prick himself with a pin. A sewing pin, one he always carried around. If he was nervous, scared, or worried, he would use the pin. The pain took his mind off the stress. Though, every night he would mourn his mother's death. Sometimes, it was too much for him to handle and the prick would do the trick. But today was different. Today was Sunday, late afternoon. Midoriya was in his room, staring blankly at the ceiling. His eyes were filled with tears, but not the smallest squeak left his mouth. He didn't want to bother Hiraku with his problems, even though he was always said to ask for help. He took a raspy breath before pulling the pin out of his pocket. He pricked the top of his finger and watched as a tiny bubble of BLD seeped out of the little wound. But the thoughts didn't go away. He pricked all 5 fingers on his broken arm, then sat up quickly. He couldn't feel enough pain. In a panic, he glanced over at the small desk in his room. There was a pair of scissors. He grabbed them, then sat down on the chair. Where? He muttered to himself. Then he looked towards his shoulder and pulled up his sleeve. He pressed the dull scissors near his shoulder on his arm, then pushed. He pushed harder, then slowly moved the scissors across his arm. It hurt enough to make the thoughts go away. It had barely torn the skin, it left a red mark and a small bubble of BLD. He just wanted the pain. The physical pain that he found helped with the emotional pain. He let out a sigh, then put away the scissors. He went back to his bed and closed his eyes until he fell asleep. This week was a little different, not really. He had received textbooks from the library, so he didn't connect his desks with Momo anymore. But during the breaks he would sit with her and Mina. Every day after school that week, Minato would drag him to the back of the school and punch him or kick him. He didn't mind. As long as it didn't harm anyone he cared about. He would stand up for himself, but he was weak. He could only talk back, he couldn't fight. Shitty nerd. Minato snapped. Midoriya flinched. It was the end of the day, and everyone had left the classroom already. Midoriya glanced over his shoulder at the taller boy. Minato grabbed him by the collar. Why won't you listen? Don't hang out with Mina or Momo. He snapped. Be because you don't own my life. They like hanging out with me. Midoriya mumbled. No they don't, idiot. He yelled. He punched Midoriya in the stomach. Midoriya covered his mouth, trying not to throw up the lunch he had eaten. If you do this here, a teacher will find us. Midoriya mumbled. I don't give a he snapped, then he punched Midoriya in the face. BLD trickled from his nose, but he ignored it. Don't touch my face. My uncle will find out. Midoriya said in a monotone. Minato clicked his tongue, as if the comment had made him even more aggravated. Shut up. He hissed as he punched Midoriya in the face again. This time, his vision became impaired. and as soon as another fist flew into his face, he lost his consciousness. When his eyes opened, he was still in the classroom, on the floor. He held onto his head as he sat up, then grabbed his phone out of his bag. It was 5 p.m., the same day. He had been out for almost 2 hours. He sat there, processing everything, then gasped and tore his bag off of the table. He ran through the school, then out of it. His uncle finished his work and he ran, as fast as he could, despite knowing he was too unfit to run for long, and ignoring how faint he felt. It took him 5 minutes to get home, and when he got there he couldn't see his uncle's car. He stumbled to the door, and fumbled with the keys in his hand, before unlocking the door. "Izuku," a familiar voice said. The boy froze in his spot. It was his uncle. He knew if he turned around, then his face would tell the whole story, but his uncle didn't seem interested in his face. He grabbed onto the teen's arm, making him flinch from pain. Midoriya glanced down at his bare arm, where dry blood had covered it. But he didn't do anything. His uncle stared at his arm, where the word in small letters had been carved into his skin. "Die." That's what is said. And Midoriya realized that why he was unconscious, his precious body had been tampered with. The word "die" was on the top of his lower arm, and multiple other deep wounds were in his arm, right where all the veins are. Blood was still gushing from one of the wounds. It had hit his vein. Midoriya covered his mouth and started trembling. "Did you do this?" His uncle calmly asked. Midoriya shook his head. "Are you being bullied? You should have told me," he said, as he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. He put the phone to his ear, then hugged Midoriya. "Hello. Yes, we need an ambulance at X Street," he said. Midoriya's eyes went wide and he shook his head. Hiraku pat the boy's head. "Yes, thank you," he said. He put the phone on speaker, then sat it on the steps leading to the house. He sat down on the step and pat the spot next to him. "Sit," he said. Midoriya obediently sat. His vision was blurry, but he didn't mention it. "How long have you been bullied here?" "It's only been 2 weeks," he mentioned. Midoriya opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "You can tell me later," he said. Midoriya sat there silently. He wasn't worried about being injured. He was angry that he'd let himself get found out like this. And now, Hiraku had to pay to take him to hospital. It wasn't long before an ambulance pulled up out front. The small teen leaned on his uncle, trembling. His breathing went shallow, and Hiraku had noticed. As soon as the paramedics jumped from the vehicle, Midoriya fell limp. Third person when the teen eyes opened, all he could see was white. A white ceiling, a white wall, a white curtain, but then he could see someone. It was his uncle, but he looked blurry. He squinted, then noticed he was asleep in a chair. He heard a heart monitor, then glanced up towards it. His heart skipped a beat when he realized where he was. In hospital. He sat up quickly, then glanced at his arm. Multiple wounds had been stitched and covered up with tape and a bandage. But it stung and he hated it. He would have jumped out of the bed to run away, but the rails on the side were up. There was an 4 connected to his arm, and his other broken arm was back in a cast. He let out a sigh, then laid back down. "You're awake?" Hiraku asked. Midoriya glanced over to his uncle, who stretched then smiled. "MHM." Midoriya nodded. Hiraku got up and walked over. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Okay." Midoriya mumbled as he sat up. "Do you want to go home?" he asked. Midoriya nodded. "I'll go talk to the nurse then," he said, as he walked past the white curtain in the ER. Midoriya looked around. He'd never been in the ER. Last time he was in hospital, it was the ICU. He only had a curtain that separated his little room from everyone else's. But he didn't mind. A nurse came in and did various tests before getting the discharge papers. Hiraku and Midoriya then left the hospital and stood on the sidewalk. It was dark out, but the moon and street lights lit up the area. Hiraku pointed towards a fast food restaurant. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "I can eat a bit." "Yes," he mumbled. Hiraku grinned, then pat the boy on the head. They walked towards the restaurant together. They ordered, then sat down at a table. Hiraku stared at Midoriya. "Hey, do you want to talk about what happened?" Hiraku cautiously asked. Midoriya froze, then looked away and shrugged. Don't look guilty. It wasn't your fault. We don't have to talk about it now, but we will have to eventually. He smiled, kind of. Midoriya nodded. He felt like crying, but he did his best to hold back tears. Sorry. He mumbled. Why are you apologizing? Hiraku calmly asked. Causing you trouble. Midoriya mumbled. No, you're not. Having you around has made me happier. Hiraku protested. Midoriya looked up at his uncle with glassy eyes, but he had nothing to say. Hiraku put on a sad smile, then a lady sat food on the table. Eat up, I'm sure you're tired. We can catch a cab home. He explained. They both ate silently. Midoriya couldn't finish all his food, he felt sick from being in hospital, so Hiraku ate what he couldn't. They left the restaurant and signaled a cab over. In the back of the car, Midoriya fell asleep on his uncle's shoulder. The weekend went fast. Midoriya spent most of it perfecting assignments. But on Sunday in the afternoon, Hiraku knocked on the boy's door. Oh, come in. Midoriya said. Hiraku opened the door and looked towards the teen. Midoriya was sitting at his small desk, writing up notes for the upcoming exams with a textbook. Wow, you really work hard. I never studied when I was your age. His uncle grinned and stepped into his room. Do you mind if we have a talk about what happened? I don't want you going to school in an environment that's not safe. He said with a serious tone. Midoriya shivered a bit, then nodded. Okay. You can sit wherever. He mumbled. His uncle sat down on the bed, then looked towards the teen. Midoriya let out a sigh, then explained to him everything Minato had done to him when he started. Hiraku sat and listened, and he looked upset when he was told his nephew had been beaten every day at school. I'm proud of you for sticking up for your friend. But you should have told me, or a teacher. He explained. I'm sorry. I just didn't want you to deal with more of my problems. I'm just a freeloader. Midoriya mumbled. Not at all. Your mother would hate for you to say that. I'm your family Izuku, and I loved your mother as much as you love her. He stated. Sorry. He mumbled again. Don't apologize. I understand why you didn't tell. But I'm going to go to your school tomorrow morning and talk with the principal about this Minato kid. He said. Midoriya went to protest, but stopped and nodded. You can stay home tomorrow if you'd like. He said. Midoriya shook his head. In math we have a practice exam. He said. Okay, that's fine. Then I'll leave you and make dinner. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 sound good. He smiled, knowing it was the teen's favorite meal. Midoriya nodded with a smile. Hiraku ruffled up his hair, then walked out of his room. Midoriya glanced towards his desk and stared at his neatly ruled notes. He let out a sigh, then got out his phone. He had a message from Momo. He gasped after he read it. 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿. Since exams are coming up, I was wondering if you'd like to come to a study session at my house tomorrow after school. Mina will be there too. Midoriya had never been to a friend's house for a study session before. He scrambled out of his chair and ran into the kitchen. Uncle Hiraku. Midoriya called. Hiraku pokes his head around the corner. Yeah. My friend? Momo, she asked me to go study at her house tomorrow. Can I go? Midoriya asked. Ho ho, my nephew all alone with a pretty girl, huh? Hiraku teased. Midoriya tilted his head to the side. Oh, Mina will be there too. With 2 pretty girls. Aren't you a lucky man? Hiraku snickered. Midoriya stared at his uncle with a confused expression, then gasped. Oh, did you want to meet her parents first? Midoriya questioned. No, it's fine, you can go. Hiraku stared at the innocent boy. Okay. Midoriya pulled out his phone. Momo Yaoyorozu, my uncle said I can come. Great. You can come home after school with me then. Midoriya glanced up at his uncle, who for some reason looked jealous. Are they big? He asked. Momo is a bit taller than me, I think. Midoriya replied in a confused tone. Hiraku looked stunned. Are you sure you're a teenager? Hiraku asked. I'm 15 soon. Midoriya mentioned. This must be your mother's doing. Hiraku scratched his chin. Midoriya questioned. Hiraku dragged him over to a magazine, then pointed at the cover. There was a picture of a pop star on it with revealing clothes. And big melons. What's the first thing you notice in this picture? He said. Midoriya stared at it, then smiled. She has green hair, like us? Midoriya looked up at his uncle, who looked like he was about to pass out. Oh, are you okay? Midoriya asked. 𝗧𝗓𝗄 pointed at her melons. What about her melons? He spat. Melons. Midoriya looked where he was pointing, then looked back at his uncle. They're melons. Melons is a different way of saying melons. 𝗧𝗓𝗄 sighed. Oh. Midoriya nodded in an understanding manner. 𝗧𝗓𝗄 awkwardly walked back to the kitchen. Third person when Midoriya walked into class on Monday, he was greeted by Momo. He gave her a small smile, then waved at her while he placed his bag on his table. His uncle had gone for a meeting with the principal this morning, so he felt a bit anxious. You got a cast on? She mentioned. Oh yeah. They said it was healing slowly, so they put this on for support again. Midoriya smiled. Can I sign it? She smiled. Oh, sure. Midoriya sat down and got out a Sharpie. She took the Sharpie and wrote, Momo, on it. Midoriya looked at her name with a smile. He had a friend. It made him happy. Do you have any food allergies? You can stay for dinner tonight. She said. Oh, thank you. I don't have any allergies. Midoriya put the Sharpie away. Okay, I'll let the chefs know. She took out her phone. Chefs. Did she mean her mother? Midoriya shrugged. The bell that signaled the start of the day went off, and everyone piled into the classroom. Homeroom went fast. Momo and Izuku spent most of it talking about scientific theories. In English, they handed up assignments, then worked on exam revision. The teacher lectured everyone on how important it was to listen, as the exams determined what high school everyone would go to. Though, it was really easy to get into the local high school and even the private high school. But Midoriya had a different goal. He wanted to get into UA High School. A high school for elite students. Not everyone there was super intellectual, some went there for sport. But to get in, you had to have an average of AB across all subjects, or an average of 80%. Midoriya was a straight A student, so he didn't find it a problem. The reason he really wanted to go there was because it was a boarding school, and their science and math courses looked extremely difficult, or in Midoriya's words, fun. It wasn't hard to get into the school. They take in 100 students a year, or 5 classes of Midoriya hoped to get in. In math, they had a practice test. Midoriya finished it before everyone else. For him, it was easy. The teacher even let him try out a high school practice test, which he also found easy. Momo got up to the high school test too, but she didn't quite finish it. During lunch, Midoriya explained the equations in the high school practice test that Momo couldn't understand. Mina watched them and looked extremely confused, so she stole Momo's lunch. For PE, Midoriya sat down and watched since he couldn't participate. Minato kept sending glares towards Midoriya, which made him shiver. He just decided to work on some exam revision, which made the lesson go fast. At the end of the day, Midoriya was packing his bag. But, unlike most other days, there was a teacher in the room. Watching Minato. Minato glared at Midoriya, but he ignored him. Ready to go? Momo asked. Yep. Midoriya smiled. They both walked to the door, but before Midoriya could walk out, Minato grabbed him by the collar and threw him onto the ground. Hey, what are you doing? The teacher yelled as he rushed over. He helped Midoriya onto his feet, then grabbed Minato's arm. That PP is being too friendly to my beach. Minato smirked. I told you, you can't claim someone. It's human rights. Midoriya dusted himself off. Minato jerked his arm away from the teacher and launched his fist towards Midoriya. Midoriya flinched, but the fist never hit him. He opened his eye. A pink-haired girl was standing in front of him, blocking his punch. Mina. Midoriya mumbled. Mina looked towards him, then grinned. I wondered what was taking you guys so long. She looked at Minato. That's all the proof we need. Minato, principal's office with me. The teacher said, then he grabbed the student's arm and dragged him out of the room. Momo and Mina glanced at the smaller teen. Was he bullying you or something? Momo asked. Midoriya scratched his head and chuckled nervously. Maybe. He mumbled. You're so weak. You should have told me I'd beat him up for you. Mina grinned. Mina, that's immature. Minato is dangerous, sorry. I should have known, he's mad that you're always around me, right? Momo asked. Yeah. Midoriya walked out of the classroom. Once I asked him why he was in love with you. He said something about 𝗧𝗫𝗧𝗟𝗘s. I told him I don't know what a 𝗧𝗫𝗧𝗟𝗘 is and he punched me. Midoriya slipped on his outdoor shoes and put his slippers in his shoe locker. What is a 𝗧𝗫𝗧𝗟𝗘? Midoriya asked, then glanced towards Mina and Momo. Mina was holding in tears of laughter. Momo looked embarrassed. The three of them walked out of school. Izuku, W's the T and the B. Mina chuckled and slapped Momo in the back. Big ties. Midoriya mumbled. Mina fell on the floor from the unstoppable laughter. Midoriya and Momo stopped walking and watched her. You're so immature, Mina. Momo said. I don't get it. What is a ties? Midoriya looked confused. Melons, Midoriya. They're melons. Mina spat from her laughter. Midoriya covered his mouth. Why are there so many words for melons? Midoriya mumbled. I don't know. Just, don't worry about it. Momo sighed. Mina stood up and wiped the tears of joy from her eyes. The three of them continued walking. Mina chuckled to herself. Hey Izuku, do you know what a PP is? Mina snickered. Momo slapped her over the head. Of course I do. Midoriya stated. The two girls stared at him. My family friend used to have one, though I think he preferred dogs. Midoriya explained. OMG, he thinks I meant a cat. Mina whispered to Momo. Momo let out a sigh. Stop tainting his innocent mind. Momo spat at Mina. A fancy car pulled up next to the trio and the driver got out of the car. To Midoriya, he looked like some kind of butler. Oh, Alfred, hello. Momo said as she walked up to the man. Hello, did you and your friends need a ride? I was just coming back from an errand. The man said. That would be lovely, thank you. Momo said with a smile. The man opened the car door. Momo climbed in. Mina ran up to the butler-like man and pat him on the back. How you going, Alfie? Mina grinned as she jumped into the car. He glanced towards the teen. Midoriya flinched, then bowed at the man and sat in the car. The butler shut the door and went to the front of the car. Mina pat Midoriya on the back. Momo is rich, don't be surprised. Mina snickered. Okay. Midoriya mumbled. Mina glanced at Midoriya's cast, then noticed Momo's name. Hey, no fair. I want to sign it too. Mina pouted. Oh, you can sign it if you'd like. Midoriya smiled. Mina pulled a pink Sharpie out from nowhere, then wrote, Mina. Thanks. Midoriya said with a charming smile. Mina blushed. Nah, you're so cute, Izuku. She ruffled up his hair. Momo hit Mina over the head again. Third person, the three friends arrived at Momo's house, or estate. Midoriya gasped at the size of it. He'd never seen such a big house. They pulled in along the long driveway that passed through a garden before stopping at the front of the house. The three of them piled out of the car and looked towards the house. Momo and Mina cheerfully walked towards the front doors. Midoriya just stared, stunned. Come in, Izuku. Mina beamed. Midoriya pulled his bag up his shoulder, then ran to catch up with them. When Momo opened the door, two maids were standing by the door. They greeted Momo with a bow. She smiled nervously. You know you don't have to be formal, and Mina doesn't care. Momo told them. Yes, but don't you have a new friend today? One of the maids mentioned. Mina pushed Midoriya into the mansion. This is Izuku. He probably wouldn't care if you were formal or not. Mina grinned. The maids gasped. Momo brought home a boy. One of them muttered. Midoriya panicked and bowed. Hello. I'm Izuku Midoriya, and nice to meet you. Midoriya mumbled. Mina pulled him up to a stand. He's our innocent little friend, not a boyfriend. Mina said. Momo let out a sigh. Just keep Nanami away from the study. You know how she is around injured people. Momo said, then she walked off. Common. Mina said to Midoriya, then ran after Momo. Midoriya looked at the maids, then smiled a cute smile and walked off. The maids blushed and glanced at each other. Momo's never brought a boy home. One of them whispered. And he's cute too. The other mentioned. They both giggled between each other. Momo took the two of them to a library in the house. Midoriya smiled at all the books. Before he could get lost in all the titles, Mina pulled him towards a table in the room. The three of them sat down and got out their notebooks and textbooks, then got to work. Midoriya happily took notes, making his page neat. He highlighted titles and wrote perfect English letters and perfect Japanese characters. Izuku. During subduction, the denser tectonic plate goes under, doesn't it? Momo asked. Midoriya glanced up at her, then smiled. Yes, normally that would be the oceanic plate. But an oceanic plate converges with another oceanic plate. It's the denser or older plate that goes under. Midoriya explained. Mina stared at them. What? Mina mumbled. Okay, thank you. Momo wrote down notes. Mina stared at Midoriya, then looked at her math notes. Hey, Izu, what's the equation for a straight line? Mina asked. In linear relations. Midoriya asked. Yup. Mina said. It's y/mx plus c. Midoriya smiled. She wrote it down. Mina smirked, then kept firing questions at him. He answered them all, even if they were equations. Mina. Are you making him do your homework? Momo asked. Yup. Mina grinned. Momo let out a sigh, then threw an eraser at her head. Do your own work. Momo said. But you asked him a question. Mina complained. That's because I had an actual question. You're being lazy. Momo folded her arm. Midoriya glanced at his textbook, then noted some things down. The door to the library slammed open, making the boy flinch and his pen slide across the paper. A line was across all his appealing work, and he looked devastated. Momo looked towards the door, then gasped. Midoriya, run. Momo mumbled. No. I can't go on. Midoriya mumbled, then he face planted into the table. His neat notes had been ruined by a line. You brought a boy over. It's true. Someone yelled. Midoriya glanced behind himself. There was a girl with neck-length brown hair. Yes, Nanami. Now, please leave, we are busy. Momo looked nervous. The girl glared at Midoriya, then gasped. She picked up his arm that was in a cast. He's injured. She gleamed. Leave him alone, he's fine. Momo stressed. But Nanami had swung Midoriya into her arms and started running off with him. Midoriya looked startled. What's going on? Midoriya questioned. Shh. We are not safe here. She stated. Midoriya questioned. Momo and Mina chased the two, trying to catch up. Nanami ran into a room and put Midoriya onto his feet, then she locked the door. Momo banged on it. Why do you have to do this every time? Momo yelled. Hush. Nanami snapped. She dragged Midoriya over to a bed in the room and pushed him onto it. Child. Tell me everywhere you're in pain. She said. I'm not in pain. Midoriya mumbled. But I could tell from the way you say that you feel discomfort by your ribs. She said, then she pressed her thumbs on his thorax. He flinched. See? And your arm, you held it weird. She stated, then poked at the stitches on his arm. He winced at the pain and backed away on the bed. For you. Midoriya mumbled. But you leg. You have a slight limp. She poked at a few spots on his leg until he jerked it away and rolled off the bed. What on earth made you so beaten up? She asked as she crawled to the end of the bed and glanced down at him. Outside of the room, Mina glanced up at Momo. What do we do? He was in some accident, wasn't he? She won't wrap him up like she did to you that one time, right? Mina shivered. I don't know. We have to find the key to this room. Come, let's go. Momo yelled. The two of them ran up a flight of stairs, then down a hallway. They opened a door and walked in. In a safe, Momo found the key for the room, then the two of them ran back down. When they got to the door, they unlocked it, but both cringed when the door opened. We're too late. Momo sighed. Mina face planted. Midoriya was shirtless, but his thorax was wrapped in a bandage, so was one of his shoulders, one of his legs, and the stitches were rewrapped. You really don't need to, I'm fine. Midoriya said to the woman. Nonsense. She sighed. But what did I saw about doing this? Momo said as she walked up to Nanami. No, Momo, you see this boy has 4 infiltration. Though it's minor, it's still important that it's treated. She said. No, it doesn't need to be treated. The severity is so minor it is almost unnoticeable. Midoriya sighed. He knew he had it the whole time and... didn't tell his parents. She said, I don't even know what 4 infiltration is. Momo said. Mina nodded. It's the pathological accumulation in tissue or cells of substances not normal to them or in amounts in excess of the normal. Midoriya explained. But it's minor. It would have happened during movement while the 4 was in. What the hell does that mean? Mina mumbled. Midoriya unraveled the unnecessary bandages from his body. These are unnecessary, they can heal without extra support. Midoriya sighed as he pulled his shirt on and struggled to button it up with one hand. Nanami went to protest, but Momo hit her on the head. Stop scaring my friends. Just because you're the family doctor doesn't mean you need to treat everything. Momo sincerely scolded. Midoriya pulled his blazer on then stood up. How do you know advanced language when you're just a kid? Nanami asked Midoriya. He just stared at her, then looked up in thought. What was advanced? He muttered. Everyone stared at him. Momo took his hand. Come on, let's study, she said. She dragged him to the library along with Mina and sat him down. Ignore Nanami. She's the doctor here and thinks she needs to treat everything. She can be scary, Momo explained. Midoriya shrugged. I just don't agree with her statement on how intravenous infiltration looks anything like intravenous hematoma. They are both completely different. Midoriya pouted. Momo watched him, then shrugged. Dunno what that means. She mumbled. Midoriya picked up his phone. There was a message from his uncle. Oh. My uncle wants me to send through a picture of the 3 of us. Is that okay? Midoriya asked. Yeah, I'll take it, Momo said. She took his phone, then went into camera. She took a cute picture of the 3 of them and gave the phone back to Midoriya. Midoriya grinned as he sent the picture through. He felt happy that he finally had taken a picture with people he could call friends. Hiraku, back at his house, was curled up in bed staring at the photo his nephew had sent through. No fair. Why does he get to hang out with girls that have big melons? Hiraku complained. He couldn't understand why all the girls avoided the perverted boys in school. And he couldn't understand why his nephew was getting all the cute ones. Third person. After around 2 hours of studying, the 3 friends went to the dining room for dinner. The table had 8 seats around it, 2 of which were taken by Momo's parents. The 3 friends sat down at the table. Mother, father, this is Izuku Midoriya, Momo said. Her mother stared at Izuku like she was assessing him. Her father grinned. Nice to meet you. You must be a good man if you're friends with my daughter. He proudly spoke. Nice to meet you, sir. Midoriya smiled his charming smile. Everyone seemed happy when they saw that smile. Momo's mum kept her eyes locked on the boy. It's okay, mum. He's not like other boys our age. I guess you could say. He's not sexually mature. Momo folded her arms while she thought. Midoriya tilted his head to the side. He didn't know what tigbitties were. Mina giggled. Not my fault. Midoriya pouted. Momo's dad snickered. Momo's mum smiled. What? Midoriya-kun, do you know what jugs are? She asked. Midoriya pointed at a jug of water on the table. This? Midoriya asked. Everyone started laughing, but Midoriya just sat with a confused expression. Is it another inappropriate part of the body? Midoriya asked. Someone placed their hand on Midoriya's shoulder. When he glanced up, he saw Alfred. Don't worry about them. You'll understand more one day, he reassured. A couple of chefs walked out, placing food on the table. Everyone settled down and ate dinner. Mina had friendly conversations with Momo's parents. Midoriya and Momo both ate silently. How's your mum's work going, Mina? Ms. Yaoyorozu asked. Good. She recently got a promotion. Mina grinned. Midoriya felt his heart skip a beat. He didn't have a mother anymore. Midoriya, where do your parents work? Mr. Yaoyorozu asked. Midoriya flinched. He didn't know how to answer. His chest went tight when he had to think about her. What? He mumbled quietly. Everyone waited eagerly for his reply. I don't have a dad. Recently passed in an accident. Midoriya said quietly, but loud enough for them to hear. He stared at his plate, afraid he would cry if he looked into anyone's eyes. Momo leaned over and gave him a hug. I'm sorry for bringing up a sensitive topic, Mr. Yaoyorozu sympathetically said. It's okay. It's been 2 months, I'm trying to get over it now. Midoriya put on a sad smile. I'm sorry for your loss. Are you living with your relatives? Ms. Yaoyorozu asked. Yeah, my uncle. That's why I transferred to this school. I like it here, the school is full of nice people. Midoriya smiled. Everyone smiled when they saw his. It was like his smile was contagious. I'm always here if you need to talk. Momo said. Me too. Mina grinned. Oh please, you wouldn't help much. Momo teased. Yes I would. Mina pouted. Midoriya chuckled, as did a few others. After dinner, Midoriya texted his uncle to come pick him up. Midoriya packed up his things, and the three friends went out the front to wait. The sun was long gone, and the moonlight was covered by blankets of clouds. Though the lights around the mansion allowed them to see. Izuku. I have a question, but you don't have to answer if it's sensitive. Momo said. What is it? Midoriya asked. The accident. Were you in it too? Momo asked. Midoriya didn't speak. It was silent for a while, but Midoriya opened his mouth to speak. Yeah, whenever. Hit by a truck that ran a red light. I was in the ICU for a while, and an induced coma for a few weeks, broke a couple bones. Mum died at the scene. Midoriya explained. It was silent. All that was heard was the quiet whistle of the wind that made the teen's hair flail. You must have been through a lot. Mina said. Momo nodded in agreement. Midoriya smiled at his friends, making them smile back. The sound of tires on asphalt made its way towards them. He glanced towards the noise. Oh, it's my uncle. Midoriya said, then he looked towards his friends. Thank you for having me, I had a good time. Midoriya smiled and bowed slightly. No need to be formal, thanks for coming. Momo smiled. Midoriya waved as he walked off to the car and climbed into the passenger seat. Why are your friends like, probably the most popular girls in the school? Hiraku pouted as he drove off. I don't think they're popular. My school doesn't really do a social hierarchy with popularity. Midoriya mumbled. Really? That's strange. Well, wanna get ice cream on the way home? Hiraku grinned. Midoriya nodded happily. Sounds great. He said. The rest of the week was full of exam revision. Minato had been suspended for a week and came back on the day of exams. You'd wonder why he wasn't expelled. That's because his family donates to the school. He gets privileges. Midoriya did his best to enjoy his time without getting assaulted every day, but he couldn't stop mourning his mother's death. He thought about it too much, it had basically taken over his life. Monday had come fast, it was the day he had his first exam of the week. It was a math one, and even though he understood everything, he was nervous. He sat at his desk, fiddling with his thumbs while the teacher handed out the test and explained the rules. They had 2 hours to complete it, then they could go home. Midoriya opened up the test and stared at the questions. He picked up his pencil and scribbled equations everywhere, or circled the correct answer. He understood all the questions and finished within the first 40 minutes. He raised his hand, and the teacher walked up to him. I'm finished. Midoriya whispered. Have you looked through it? The teacher asked. Midoriya nodded. 3 times. Oh. Then you can go quietly. The teacher picked up his exam. Don't I have to wait for everyone else to finish? Midoriya asked. Not at this school. When you finish, you leave. The teacher smiled. Okay. He said as he silently packed up his stuff and stood up. He bowed slightly to the teacher before leaving the classroom. He walked to the supermarket and picked up some groceries, then walked back home. That night, he cooked up dinner for his uncle before he got home from work. They sat down and ate together. Hiraku was going on about a pretty girl that was single. Midoriya just listened with a smile. How was your exam? He asked. Easy. I finished in 40 minutes, I think. Midoriya grinned. What? I CK at math. Hiraku stabbed a potato. Really? I think it's easy. Midoriya sipped his water. If you get 100%, I'll give you 10,000 yen. Around 135 Australian dollars, 92 US dollars, Hiraku grinned. What? I'm too confident that I got 100%, you don't have to give me anything. Midoriya shook his head. I will. Anyway, what high school did you want to go to? He asked. Oh, I want to go to UA. Midoriya smiled. UA. That really elite school? He asked. Yeah. Is it too expensive? Midoriya asked. No, not at all. I'm a businessman, I've got more money than you'd think. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 smiled. Really? But you're not good at math. Midoriya asked. I'm okay at math, I'm better at strategies, marketing, He explained. Okay. That's why you don't have a partner. Midoriya looked up and thought. Are you calling me dumb? 𝗧𝗃 sulked. No, I'm calling you busy. You're busy, right? I'll make dinner for the rest of the week. Midoriya smiled. Oh, okay. 𝗧𝗃 smiled. Midoriya cleaned up after dinner, then walked off to his room and studied. 𝗧𝗃 bursted through the door, making Midoriya flinch and draw a line over his neat notes. Does that mean you're leaving me all alone? You're going to dorm there? He asked. Yeah, if I get in. Midoriya mumbled. But I'll be so lonely. He cried. You can get a girlfriend, can't you? Then you won't be lonely. Plus, I'll come back on weekends and holidays. Midoriya smiled. Oh, a girlfriend. Do you think I'm too old for kids? 𝗧𝗃 asked. How old are you? Midoriya asked. 32, 𝗧𝗃 grinned. Oh really? I thought you were older. You were 18 when I was born. Midoriya mentioned. Yep. Your mum was 20. He smiled. Then, go find a girlfriend or something. I don't know how relationships work. Midoriya chuckled. You should get one in high school too. You're quite the cute teenager. 𝗧𝗃 waved, then disappeared from the room. The school year went quick. Midoriya got 100% in all his exams, and top score in his school. Momo had an average of 97%, and Mina had 84%. All three of them surprisingly were going to UA for the entrance exam. Mina was going for sports, though. Excitingly, they all got in. All into Class 1A as homeroom. Midoriya had the highest score in the entrance exams, and had to make a speech at the opening ceremony, which he was super unprepared for. Though, he was happy to be with his friends. Third person Midoriya was standing on a stage, in front of a crowd of 200 people. Parents, students, and teachers. He didn't understand how time had moved so fast. As he remembered, it wasn't long ago that he was studying for exams with his friends. Now, his cast was off and he was only in a tight bandage. Because he had the top entrance examination scores, he had to do a speech. He was left on the stage with eyes gazing at him, but he pulled the mic to the right height and took a deep breath. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to stand up here today to welcome all the new students to their first year of high school. I'm sure we have all worked very hard to be here today at this elite school, and you should all be proud of your achievements. Midoriya started. It was easier than he thought. This fall, we have 100 new students joining us. 40 of them are sport-focused, the remainder are general courses. Of the 1,238 people who did the entrance exam for this school, these 100 students are the ones who passed, with the top scores. That is a great achievement in itself. The crowd cheered. Midoriya smiled. I look forward to working with everyone this year and years to come. I hope you all settle in well, go beyond, plus ultra. Everyone in the crowd cheered and clapped, but Midoriya felt like an idiot for saying the school's slogan. The principal made him. The rest of the entrance ceremony were people talking about what happens at the school. The last talk was about the day. Today was a day for settling in, people meet their roommates, unpack their stuff and explore the school, or whatever they want. Since it was Friday, that was also how the weekend would be. At the end of the ceremony, Midoriya found his uncle in the crowd. Do you remember your room number? 𝗧𝗃 asked. Yes. It's room 201. Midoriya said. The two of them followed the signs around the school and walked down the hallways of the dorm building. There were suitcases by all the doors, because they were delivered by the workers. They eventually made it to room. 𝗧𝗃 handed the boy an ID card. It had Midoriya's face on it, and room number, and other details. Midoriya tapped it on the door and walked in. 𝗧𝗃 grabbed his suitcase and rolled it into the room. Midoriya looked around the room, his mouth dropped. They were standing in a small kitchen/dining room. There were 4 other doors spaced out around them. I thought it was just a small room for a couple people. Midoriya said. Oh, this is big. 𝗧𝗃 said. Midoriya glared at him. You said a naughty word. Midoriya murmured. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 covered his mouth and smiled. You're just like your mother. He chuckled. Midoriya pouted and looked through all the doors. There was a bathroom with a shower and bath, and a separate bathroom with a toilet and a washing machine/dryer. There were 2 identical rooms with a bed, desk and closet, as well as a door that lead to a balcony. I felt like I'm living in my first home. Midoriya mumbled. Wow. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 smiled. Midoriya, I got you a gift. Midoriya glanced over at his uncle. It's your birthday tomorrow, isn't it? He handed Midoriya an envelope and a wrapped-up box. Oh, you didn't have to get me anything. Midoriya stressed. Just take it. He chuckled. Midoriya reluctantly took the gifts. Do I open it now? Midoriya asked. Yeah. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 mumbled. Midoriya sat down at the kitchen table and unwrapped the box. It was the latest smartphone. He gasped and glanced up at his uncle. Isn't this expensive? Midoriya asked. Yes. But your current phone is from the Stone Age. He smiled. Midoriya smiled. I'll have to set it up later then. Midoriya said. Yep. After you settle in here. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 grinned. Midoriya opened up the envelope and took out a card. The front of it said, To my cute little nephew. Midoriya cringed. Why do you always call me cute? Midoriya asked. Have you looked in the mirror? 𝗧𝗓𝗃 ruffled up the boy's hair and chuckled. He opened up the card, and a lot of paper fell out. They were coupons for pizza and food of all sorts. Oh, thank you. Midoriya smiled. Midoriya happily read through the card. Also, since you got 100% on all 7 of your exams, I transferred 70,000 yen into your credit card. And all the money that I get for looking after you from the government was put into your card. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 said. Isn't that money for you though? Midoriya asked. Each month, 𝗧𝗓𝗃 is given money from the government for fostering Midoriya. It is for me, but I don't think it's fair that I get paid for looking after my sister's son. So, all the money is for you. And that still stands for all the money I get from the government for you. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 said. Midoriya's eyes filled with tears. He got up and gave his uncle a big hug. You're too kind to me. Midoriya mumbled. You're too cute. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 smiled as he pat the boy's back. Well, I have to get to work. Will you be okay on your own? 𝗧𝗓𝗃 asked. Yep. Midoriya smiled. Okay. Well, I'll leave you then. See you when I see you. 𝗧𝗓𝗃 waved as he left the room. Midoriya cleaned up the wrapping paper and sat at the table with his suitcase by his feet. He took out his new phone and started setting it up while he waited for his roommate to come. And it wasn't long before he heard the door unlock and open. He glanced up at the door, and there stood with a suitcase was a heterochromian boy. Midoriya stood up and bowed. Nice to meet you. I'm Midoriya Izuku. He said. The taller boy bowed. I'm Shoto Todoroki. He glanced around the room and froze. Why is it so big? He mumbled. Midoriya smiled a cute smile. I don't know either. He said. Todoroki blushed at the boy's smile. Is it just the 2 of us in this dorm? He asked. Yep. Midoriya said. Todoroki shut the door behind him and pulled his suitcase along the floor. Such a big room for just 2 people. Todoroki mumbled. Yeah. It's much bigger than I thought. Midoriya said. Todoroki looked around for a bit, then walked back up to Midoriya. What room do you want? Midoriya asked. I don't mind. Todoroki said. Midoriya took a coin out of his pocket. Heads or tails? Midoriya asked. Tails. Todoroki questioned. Midoriya flipped the coin and looked at it. It's tails. You choose first. Midoriya grinned. Oh. Todoroki glanced at the 2 identical rooms. Then that one. He pointed. Okay, let's go unpack then. Midoriya said. He walked into the other room with all his belongings. He hung his clothes in the closet and sat a picture of him and his mum on the desk. He neatly tucked his suitcase under the bed, then walked out of the room. Todoroki was exploring every cupboard. I think we should go shopping. Todoroki said. No. Midoriya asked. Yes. We need some stuff. Todoroki said. Third person, the 2 newly acquaintanced boys walked together off the school's campus. They traveled towards the shops in awkward silence. Neither of them seemed bothered by how quiet it was. They walked into a supermarket. Todoroki grabbed a basket. Get whatever you'd like. I have my dad's credit card. Todoroki held up a gold credit card. Doesn't he need that? Midoriya asked. Maybe. Todoroki put it away and glanced around. Well, I can cook a bit, so, is there anything you want me to make? Midoriya asked. Soba. Todoroki drooled. Okay. Midoriya chirped, then he ran off to collect ingredients. Todoroki found soap, shampoo, conditioner and detergent for washing dishes and cleaning clothes. Midoriya found Todoroki and placed everything he had found in the basket. I'll make soba tonight, pork cutlet tomorrow. Is that okay? Midoriya asked. Sounds good. Todoroki said. Oh, can I get a TV for the wall in the kitchen? Todoroki asked. Sure. Midoriya smiled. Great. Todoroki smiled, kind of. Together they found other essentials like toilet paper, snacks, fruit. Then they purchased it all using Midoriya's coupons and Todoroki's father's credit card and went back to the school. They unpacked all the shopping together. Midoriya sat down at the table. Todoroki started measuring the space on the wall. He pulled out his phone and typed some things in, then sat down at the table. My sister will bring my TV here. We can put it on the wall. Todoroki said. Are we allowed to? Midoriya asked. We can do what we want to he dorms. When we graduate in 3 years the dorm workers make them look the same as they did at the start. Todoroki explained. Okay. Midoriya smiled. Should I make some tea for her? If you want. She likes green tea. Todoroki said. Okay. Midoriya smiled. He pulled the kettle out from the cupboard and boiled it. Oh. We don't have any mugs, or plates. Bowls. Or utensils. Midoriya said as he opened the drawers. We have a kettle, a toaster, a fry pan and a pot. Let's go buy some. Todoroki stood up. But your sister. Midoriya mentioned. Our house is 30 minutes. She needs to disconnect my TV from the wall and take out the rails so we can put them on the wall here. It'll take her at least an hour before she gets here. Todoroki said. Okay. Midoriya smiled and picked up his phone. They caught an Uber to a mall, then went to the closest store. They picked out 4 dark gray mugs and matching bowls and plates. They found the cheapest utensils, then got some glass cups and anything else they needed. Should we go to another store and get quilt covers for our beds? Midoriya asked. That's a good idea. Todoroki said. They purchased the items, then went to another store. Midoriya picked out a pastel green cover with little lines on it, while Todoroki picked a blue/white one. They got another pillow for the bed, then traveled back to the dorms. They neatly put away all the utensils, then walked into their rooms. Midoriya felt like he had just moved into a house with a stranger, but the stranger was someone he felt strangely comfortable with. He put his new pillow slips onto his 2 pillows, then picked up the plain white quilt that was provided by the school. He managed to put his quilt cover on, though it hurt his arm. He made his bed neatly and sat down on it. It was surprisingly comfortable. He almost felt like sinking into the bed. But a doorbell sound rung through the dorm house and he jumped up. Both the boys walked out of their rooms. Todoroki opened the door, where a white/red-haired girl stood with a TV by her feet. Hello. Todoroki said. He picked up the TV and carried it in. The girl followed him and shut the door behind her. She looked over at Midoriya and gasped. Your roommate is the top student. She mentioned. It is. Todoroki looked at Midoriya. I slept through the entrance ceremony. The girl slapped him over the head and sighed. Nice to meet you, Midoriya. My name is Fuyumi Todoroki. She bowed. Midoriya bowed. Nice to meet you, he said. Fuyumi put her backpack on the table, then pulled rails out for the wall. Where do you want it? She said. Todoroki pointed at the wall. She walked up and measured the area, then pulled out a screw gun. Midoriya nervously went and made tea. Fuyumi put the TV up, then connected a console to it. Todoroki just watched the whole time. Midoriya made tea and sat it on the table with biscuits. Fuyumi sighed and sat down. Thanks for the tea. She smiled. No worries. If you want anything else, let me know. Midoriya smiled. Will do, thank you. I wish Shoto was a good boy like you. She pouted. I am a good boy. Todoroki frowned. Fuyumi chuckled. Midoriya, do you have any siblings? She asked. No, I'm an only child. Midoriya smiled. Really? That must be nice. I have 3 brothers, 2 of them are ratbags. Shoto is very quiet. She sipped on her tea. Midoriya glanced at Todoroki, who also looked towards him. Midoriya smiled sweetly. Todoroki blushed. Why do you smile like that? Todoroki asked. Like what? Midoriya questioned. Like really cute. Are you seducing everyone? Todoroki looked up and began to think. No, that's just how I smile. Midoriya tilted his head to the side. Oh, shut up, Shoto, your roommate is cute in general. Fuyumi sighed. I'm not that cute. I can be handsome too. Cute is too girly. Midoriya pouted. Both the siblings stared at the boy's pout, then looked at each other. Cute. They simultaneously said. Midoriya crossed his arms and sighed softly. Well. He mumbled. Well, I have to go. Shoto, come with me for a sec, I've got something in the car for you. Fuyumi said. Hey. Shoto mumbled. Oh. Nice meeting you. Midoriya smiled. Thanks for the tea, she said as she picked up her backpack and swung it over her shoulder. She opened the door and walked out. Todoroki got up and walked to the door. See you in a bit. Todoroki mumbled. He walked out of the door and ran up to his sister. Please, Shoto, do not fall for your roommate, Fuyumi said. They both walked into an elevator. What? I'm not gay. Todoroki stated. I know you dated that kid, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, that came over all the time. I saw you making out. Fuyumi crossed her arms. Todoroki's face flushed red. What? You PPNGTM. And I not gay, I'm bi. Todoroki pouted. Not my fault. Anyway, you being gay doesn't bother me. Just don't fall for your roommate, he's probably not gay. Fuyumi mumbled. I don't want my little bro heartbroken now, do I? She ruffled up his hair and smirked. Stop teasing me. I can deal with heartbreak. Todoroki sighed. Fuyumi opened her car and pulled out a bag, then gave it to him. Take this, share it with your roommate. And don't sleep in class. She said. Yeah. Bye then. Todoroki started walking off. Oh, and Dad wants his credit card back, she yelled. Todoroki flipped her off, then ran away as fast as he could. Third person. When Todoroki got back to the dorm, Midoriya was cooking up soba. What are you making? Todoroki asked. Tsukimi soba, is that what you want? Midoriya looked up at him with a smile. Sounds good. Todoroki smiled. Good. Midoriya cracked an egg onto a pan with one hand. So, did you get full marks on the entrance exams? Todoroki asked. Yes, somehow. Midoriya looked towards him. What did you get? Midoriya asked. 99%. Todoroki looked up as he thought. I couldn't remember if phi was 1. 618 or 1. 681. Oh, it's 1. 618. Midoriya smiled. Oh, I did that one. I wonder what I got wrong then. Todoroki shrugged and got 2 bowls out. He sat them on the small bench, then glanced at Midoriya. The smaller teen looked deep in thought. He chopped up spring onion, then looked up at Todoroki and smiled. It's ready now, Midoriya said. He served up the bowls, then handed one to Todoroki. Todoroki took it with a smile, then sat it on the table. I'll get water, Todoroki said. Okay, Midoriya said as he walked to the table and sat down with his bowl. Todoroki sat a cup of water in front of him and chopsticks next to him. The two of them ate silently, then Todoroki washed up. Midoriya wiped over the table and made sure the bench was clean. Do you want to play Mario Kart? Todoroki asked. Oh, sure. Midoriya grinned. They sat in the chairs. Todoroki turned on the TV and got up Mario Kart. He handed Midoriya a controller. How do you play? Midoriya asked. Hold down 2 and turn the remote to move. Todoroki explained. Okay. Midoriya glanced up at the screen. Todoroki picked Rainbow Road and put a tiny smile on. Though, unlike what Todoroki believed would happen, Midoriya came first easily. He only fell off once. And he did it using one hand. You've played before? Todoroki questioned. Nope. I just figured out that turning correctly depends on your speed and the degree you turn at. Midoriya smiled. Then, why did you play with one hand? Todoroki mumbled. Oh, my arm's broken and it's a bit sore right now. I've used it a lot today. Midoriya said. Broken? Why isn't it in a cast? Todoroki asked. I got the cast off yesterday, now it's just wrapped up. Midoriya pulled his sleeve up, showing the bandage around his arm and hand. Oh, okay. Todoroki picked another hard round. He was salty, because he always won in Mario Kart. But Midoriya won again. And again and again. Oh, I'm going to shower now. I'm going out in the morning. Midoriya smiled. Okay. Todoroki turned off the TV and put the remotes away. Midoriya grabbed his towel and clothes, then went into the bathroom. He locked the door, then dumped his stuff on the ground. He carefully took his clothes off, then stared at his arms. One, broken, wrapped up in a bandage. The other, scars that reminded him of his last 7 weeks in middle school. Scars that Minato had given him. They were thin because of stitches, thankfully, but he saw them as clear as ever. He looked towards his left shoulder, where wounds were present. The ones he had given himself. Since the sewing pin hadn't been working, he had started cutting on his shoulder. They were already leaving scars, and he was running out of room. He let out a sigh as he unraveled the bandage on his broken arm. He turned on the shower, then hopped in and stood under it. The shower steamed up around him. He inhaled sharply, then washed his face under the warm water. He washed his hair, then his body, then he turned off the shower. He put on his pajamas, then realized it was short-sleeved. He had grabbed the wrong pair. It didn't bother him because his self-harm scars were on his shoulder, hidden by the short sleeves. But the scar Minato had given him could be seen only if you looked hard enough. He hung his towel on the rail, then picked up his clothes and walked out of the bathroom. Todoroki looked at Midoriya. A DLVI guy dropped of our books and uniform. Todoroki said. Oh, give me a sec. Midoriya walked into his room and neatly hung his clothes up, then walked out while struggling to strap his arm back up. Would you like help with that? Todoroki asked. That would be nice. Midoriya nervously chuckled. Todoroki walked over to the smaller boy and took the bandage. Does it need to be tight? He asked. Yeah. Midoriya mumbled. Let's sit down then. Todoroki gestured towards the chairs. The two of them sat down. Todoroki carefully wrapped up his arm, but tightly. Midoriya winced when he wrapped tightly over the part where his bone was actually broken. Sorry. Todoroki apologized. It's fine, it's fine. Midoriya smiled. Todoroki noticed the small scar on the boy's other arm, that red dye, along with all the other small scars. He quickly looked away, pretending he hadn't seen anything. He didn't want to pry into business he wasn't invited into. He tucked the final piece of the bandage under the other part, then looked at Midoriya. All done. Todoroki stood up. Want me to carry your box into your room? He asked. That would be a good help. Thank you. Midoriya smiled. Todoroki walked over to 2 boxes. He picked up the one with Midoriya's name on it, then walked into Midoriya's room. Midoriya followed behind him. On the floor there is fine, thanks. Midoriya said. Todoroki placed the box on the floor. Thanks for your help. Midoriya smiled kindly. Todoroki smiled a little. Well, I'm off to unpack. Night, Midoriya-kun. Todoroki said. Night, Todoroki-kun. Midoriya smiled. Todoroki walked out of the room and quietly closed the door behind himself. Midoriya looked towards the box, then opened it. Inside was his school uniform. He pulled it out and smiled. There was a gray, neatly pressed blazer with dark green stripes in various places. There were 3 white button-up shirts and 2 green trousers. And of course, the red tie, which Midoriya had no idea how to tie. He hung it all up in his cupboard, then went back to the box. There were labeled books and stationery, as well as a backpack and a laptop. He neatly set everything up on his desk, then jumped into bed. He was surprised at how comfy the bed was, and he fell asleep almost immediately. The night was peaceful for a while, but around an hour later he woke up breathless, from the same nightmare he had every night. He panicked as he remembered the truck hitting his mother. Her BLD that not only stained the road, but him too. Then he was hit. He covered his mouth, believing he would throw up from the traumatic memories. He rolled out of his bed and ran into the bathroom. As soon as his eyes met the toilet, he threw up into it. He sat there, coughing with tear-filled eyes. "Midoriya, are you okay?" Todoroki asked. Midoriya flinched and spun around. Todoroki was stood by the door with a worried expression on his face. Midoriya put on a forced smile. "Sorry. I'm okay." Midoriya mumbled as he wiped his eyes. "Are you sick? Do you want medicine?" he asked. "I'm fine, don't worry about me." "Sorry for waking you." Midoriya trembled as he stood up. "No, I was awake. It's only 10:30. Todoroki tilted his head to the side. "I'll go get you medicine. Go back to bed when you're ready." Todoroki ran off before Midoriya could protest. He flushed the toilet and splashed his face with water. His hands were trembling aggressively, so he held them behind his back while he silently walked into his room and laid back down. Todoroki turned on the light, then walked up to his bed and handed him a glass of water along with a small pill. Midoriya took it and sat up. "Thanks," he mumbled, then he put the pill in his mouth and swallowed it down with water. Todoroki put his hand on the smaller boy's forehead, then out his other hand on his own. "You're a little warm," he assessed. "Oh, I'm not sick. Sorry. It's not something you can catch." Midoriya mumbled. "I know. You had a nightmare, didn't you? You were sleep-talking a bit. I could hear you when I was in the kitchen." Todoroki took the cup from him and placed it on the floor. He looked up at the smaller boy and noticed he looked terrified. I'm sorry. I promise I won't tell. And you don't have to tell me anything you don't want to say, okay?" Todoroki reassured, but Midoriya started trembling again. Sorry." Midoriya held his hands together, trying to make them still. "Midoriya, I know a breathing technique that should calm you down if you'd like to try it." Todoroki calmly said. "Why?" Midoriya mumbled. "Breathe in through your nose until there's no more room in your lungs. Then breathe in again through your mouth, hold it for a second, then exhale." Todoroki explained. Midoriya did what he said, and let out a shaky breath. "Again." Todoroki smiled. Midoriya did it again, then again, and sure enough, his hands stopped shaking. "Try get some sleep. Come get me if you need help again," Todoroki said. He stood up and to the door. "Night," he said, then he turned off the light, quietly closing the door behind himself. Midoriya sunk into his bed. He felt stupid for already dragging his roommate into his personal problems, but before he could argue much more, he fell asleep. And that night, he didn't wake up again or have any nightmares. Third-person Midoriya had woken up early that morning and caught a bus to the cemetery. He stood in front of his mother's grave with flowers in his hand. "I got into UA, Mum." He smiled as he laid the flowers next to the stone. "My roommate seems really nice. But I think I might burden him too. I'll do my best because that's what you wanted. I'll try to be happy for you, though my heart aches with sorrow because I miss you dearly." Midoriya mumbled. He clapped his hands together twice, then bowed and prayed. He soon left the cemetery, stood at the road. He swallowed, then looked both ways and crossed. When he made it to the other side, his chest felt like bursting. He never managed to calmly cross the road. He walked into a mall and walked around. His phone started buzzing, making him flinch. He pulled it out of his pocket and looked at it. His uncle was calling. He pressed the answer button. "Hello," Midoriya mumbled. "Happy birthday," Hiraku yelled through the phone. Midoriya smiled. "Thank you. Are you spending time with your girlfriends today?" Hiraku teased. "No, I visited Mum. Now I'm getting stuff for the dorm." Midoriya looked around the mall. "What? You should eat junk and have fun with your friends." Hiraku scolded. "I'll take some cream bread back to my roommate." Midoriya said. "Buy a cake. I'll send you money." Hiraku said. "A cake? No. That's fine, I'll just get cream bread." Midoriya stressed. "No. A cake, and send me pictures or I'll come with one myself." Hiraku demanded. Okay, I'll buy a cake." Midoriya sighed. "Good, well then I'll let you go. See ya," he said. "Goodbye, uncle." Midoriya smiled. He hung up and walked up to a bakery. There were a few cakes. He looked for the cheapest one, and found a small chocolate cake. He brought it, then walked out of the mall. He was going to call Todoroki and asked if he wanted anything, but realized he didn't have his number yet. Midoriya went to a bus stop, then hopped on a bus that went back to the school. He looked at the time, it was already 11 a.m. He sighed and looked out the window. He fiddled with his thumbs, but kept his arms wrapped around the box that was on his lap with the cake in it. After around 30 minutes, the bus approached his school, so he pressed the stop button. He got off the bus and walked back to the dorms. He tapped his ID on the door and walked in. Todoroki was playing Mario Kart. He looked over at Midoriya. "Welcome back." Todoroki said. "Hello." Midoriya said as he sat the box on the table. "Do you like sweets?" Midoriya asked. "Yeah." Todoroki tilted his head. "My uncle told me to buy a cake. Would you like some?" Midoriya asked. "Sure. Is it your birthday today?" Todoroki asked. "Yeah." Midoriya chuckled. "Oh, then happy birthday." He put his thumb up. Midoriya opened the box and took the cake out. "Thank you." Midoriya smiled. He took a picture of the cake, then sent it to Hiraku. He walked over to the little kitchen, got out a knife and plates. "How much would you like?" Midoriya asked. "I don't mind." Todoroki stood up and got 2 forks. Midoriya cut 2 slices from the small cake, leaving a bit more than half left. "Maybe I'll go see if Mina and Momo want some." He mumbled to himself. He sat the 2 slices on the plates, then sat one in front of Todoroki. Todoroki sat a fork by Midoriya's plate. "Thanks for the food," Todoroki said. Midoriya smiled and dug into the cake. Loved birthday cakes, they were his favorite. Todoroki stared at Midoriya's satisfied expression. He thought the boy looked adorable. It wasn't long before Midoriya finished his slice. He looked upset when he noticed it was all gone. He pulled out his phone and texted Momo and Mina. Group chat: Momo: "Why, Mina, hello. Would you like some cake?" Mina is typing. Mina: "Hell yes. What's your room number?" "Are girls allowed in boys' rooms?" Mina: "Our room is in the same building, we are room O." "Well, that's good. See you soon." Midoriya glanced towards his roommate. My friend's coming for some cake, is that okay?" Midoriya asked. "I don't mind." Todoroki said. "Thanks." Midoriya smiled happily. He stood up and cleaned up a bit. Todoroki just stared at him. "Midoriya, your smile might kill everyone." Todoroki mentioned. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Midoriya asked. "It's too precious. Far too precious for this world to handle." Todoroki sighed to himself. "Is that a compliment, or?" Midoriya tilted his head, but there was a knock on the door. He walked over and opened it. Mina ran into the room and hugged Midoriya. "It's our little child Momo. Look, I think he's grown," Mina yelled. Momo sighed and walked into the room. "Sorry, Izuku," she said. "Hello, Momo." Midoriya smiled. "Momo." Todoroki murmured. Momo looked over at Todoroki and gasped. "Shoto," she said. "Wow, you've changed a bit." Todoroki said. "As have you," she said. "Well, at least I know Izuku isn't rooming with an idiotic pervert." Midoriya gasped. "Naughty word. Idiot isn't a naughty word." Mina protested. Midoriya covered Mina's mouth. "Would you say idiot in front of a principal?" "So it's a naughty word." Midoriya pouted. "He's done it again." Todoroki mumbled. "Done what?" Momo asked. "Them innocent faces. They could end the world." Todoroki mumbled. "I know, right?" Momo mumbled to him. Midoriya looked over at them, cluelessly. "Oh, would you like some cake?" He smiled. "Yes." Mina cheered. Midoriya got out plates and forks, then cut them both slices. "Wait, is it your birthday?" Momo asked. "Yep." Midoriya smiled as he handed them both a plate. "Oh, why didn't you tell us sooner?" Momo quickly got out her phone. "Please take the cake, my arm's broken and it hurts to even touch anything and I feel like it'll snap again." Midoriya continued muttering from the pain in his arm. Todoroki took the plates and sat them on the table. "Thanks." Midoriya sighed and held his arm. "SHT. It's your birthday and I haven't gotten you anything." Mina said. "Naughty word." Midoriya pouted. The 2 girls sat down and scoffed the cake. "We will be back." Mina yelled. They both ran out of the dorm. Midoriya crossed his arms. Geez. They didn't even apologize for saying a naughty word. Midoriya pouted. Todoroki stared at the boy, then chuckled quietly. I can see why you're Momo's friend. Todoroki rested his cheek in his hand. Oh. How did you meet her? Midoriya asked. Our parents are business partners, we've known each other since we were kids. Todoroki explained. Midoriya smiled. That's cool. They tried to make us fall in love by sending us on dates, but neither of us were interested in each other. Todoroki sighed. Really? Lots of the boys in middle school liked her for some reason. Midoriya smiled. Because of her body and wealth. Todoroki explained. Body? Why body? Midoriya questioned. People normally are interested in certain body types. Don't you have aspects in a person that you would go for? Todoroki asked. Nope. I've never dated. But I think I'd go for their personality. Midoriya grinned. You're too innocent for this world, Midoriya. Todoroki sighed. How so? Midoriya asked. If you're not careful, you'll be snatched by someone who will only love you because you're cute. Todoroki stated. I'll keep that in mind. I'm definitely not cute. I can be handsome too. Midoriya smiled. Todoroki face planted. Third-person Todoroki and Midoriya played Mario Kart for a while and ate snacks. Around 2 hours after the girls had left, there was a knock on the door. Midoriya got up and opened the door. Happy birthday! Mina screamed. Midoriya flinched at the sudden loud noise. Happy birthday! Momo smiled. Thanks guys. Midoriya invited them in. Mina carried in a big bag, and Momo carried heating trays. We brought you food and presents. Momo said, You didn't have to do anything. Midoriya shook his hands in the air. Too late. Mina grinned and sat the presents on the chair. Momo sat the trays on the table. There's enough for all 4 of us. Momo smiled. Midoriya's eyes filled with tears. You guys. He sobbed as he pulled them both into a hug. Happy birthday, shorty. Mina smiled. I'm not short. Midoriya complained. Their afternoon was spent playing games, opening presents, and eating food. They all had a good time, but the time came where the girls had to go back to their dorms. Todoroki and Midoriya both got ready for bed, then said goodnight before retiring to their rooms. It wasn't long before Midoriya had fallen asleep, but the nightmares came fast. He woke up as soon as the truck smashed into him. He sat up, gasping, and clenching onto his sheet. Every night, the scene played in his head seemed to get more violent and scarier the more it was played. He hoped to himself that he hadn't disturbed Todoroki. His hands were trembling again. He tried the breathing technique Todoroki had showed him, but it didn't work. He got up, put on some slippers, then walked out onto the balcony. He stood there, staring up at the stars. It was rather cold out, but he didn't really notice. Why were you taken from me? He mumbled as a tear rolled down his innocent cheek. Before he knew it, he was crying. He covered his face with his hands. He felt like screaming. Inside his head, thoughts were bouncing around blaming him for her death, or saying it should have been him instead. He tugged at the green locks on his head, desperately trying to make the thoughts go away. Todoroki opened his door and looked towards the smaller boy. He pulled the blanket off his bed and walked up to Midoriya, wrapping the blanket around his shoulders. You'll get sick. Would you like to talk? Todoroki quietly asked. Midoriya looked up at his roommate with tear-filled eyes. Todoroki frowned, then guided him into his own room and sat him on the bed. What's wrong? You don't have to tell me if it's personal. Todoroki sat in his chair. Sorry. Just a nightmare. Midoriya mumbled. Again. Todoroki questioned. Yeah. I think I'm traumatized. He mumbled. Sorry. If it's a sensitive topic then you don't have to talk about it, but you can if you want. Todoroki smiled reassuringly. Midoriya looked into the distance as he thought, then he looked at Todoroki. I will keep having nightmares, so I should tell you. But I don't want to burden you with the weight of my problems. Midoriya mumbled. I don't mind, I'll try help you. We are roommates after all. Todoroki said. Midoriya sat silently for a bit, then let out a little sigh. A couple months ago, I was in an accident with my mum. A truck hit us both, she died. But I always have nightmares replaying the scene. My mum dies and I get hit. Midoriya rubbed his broken arm in slight discomfort. That's horrible. I'm sorry for your loss. Todoroki sympathized. I'm sorry that you have to deal with me. Thanks for last. Midoriya pulled the blanket further over himself. I don't mind. Though, you shouldn't suffer in silence. There are people that can help you. Todoroki said. Yeah. Midoriya mumbled. You can lay down in my bed, I'll go get some hot chocolate, okay? Todoroki stood up. Ah, thank you, Todoroki. Midoriya mumbled. It's fine, he said as he walked out of the room. He stood in the kitchen while he made hot chocolate, and he thought about the poor boy. He felt sorry for Midoriya, because he knew what it was like to suffer from trauma. He held his hand over the burned scar on his face. Though he was happy his mother was still alive, he still felt he had to help Midoriya, in some way. He carried 2 hot chocolates into his room, but when he got there, Midoriya had fallen asleep. Todoroki smiled, and quietly placed the 2 mugs on his desk. He pulled a futon out of his cupboard and rolled it onto the floor, then turned off the light. Sleep well, he whispered as he tucked Midoriya into bed, then crawled into the futon. The next morning, Midoriya was the first to wake up. He sat up and stretched, then looked down at Todoroki. He gasped and looked around the room, noticing it was not his own. Todoroki's eyes fluttered open. He glanced up at Midoriya and smiled. Morning, he mumbled. I am sorry. I fell asleep accidentally. You should have slept in my bed. You didn't have to sleep on the floor, or you could have woken me up. I'm sorry. Midoriya continued apologizing. Oh hush, I don't mind. I prefer futons over beds. Todoroki stretched. But still, I fell asleep in your bed. Midoriya panicked. It doesn't bother me. Don't freak out. Anyway, I'm going to go shower. Todoroki rolled up the futon and threw it into the cupboard. While Todoroki was in the shower, Midoriya tidied Todoroki's room and cooked up breakfast. Todoroki walked out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist. Smells nice, he mentioned. Pancakes, Midoriya said, then he looked at Todoroki and blushed. No fair, why do you have abs? Midoriya pouted, while he stared at the taller boy's toned body. Oh, I did martial arts, Todoroki said. I did martial arts once but I'm pudgy, Midoriya complained, as he poked his stomach. No, you're perfect just the way you are. Todoroki smiled and walked into his room. Midoriya blushed, and his heart skipped a beat. Am I sick? He mumbled to himself as he placed his hand on his head. Oh, did you clean my room? Todoroki poked his head around the door. Oh, a little. Midoriya chuckled nervously. You didn't have to, thanks though, he said before shutting the door. Midoriya looked towards the pancake and flipped it. He couldn't remember what he was thinking about, so he just hummed as he cooked. Third person, it was finally Monday, the first day of high school. Midoriya and Todoroki were silently walking towards the main campus. It was rather early, but Midoriya was a morning person so he was happy. Todoroki wished he were still in bed. Do you think our class will be nice? Midoriya asked. Who knows? Todoroki yawned as he looked around at the large school. They were walking through a garden. There were low hedges along the path which had flowers blooming out of them, and green grass covered the area between them. There were seats, cherry blossom trees and other appealing plants all around. Right in front of the doors to the school was a water fountain. Midoriya ran his fingers along the white stone of the fountain and inhaled the fresh air. Well, let's do our best. Midoriya grinned. Eventually, they found their classroom. There were a few students in it who were chatting or sitting down silently. There were names on each of the students' desks. Midoriya found his and put his bag on the hook. He was upset to know Todoroki's desk was so far away. The bell to start the day soon went, and students piled into the room. Midoriya assesses them all, but when he saw one kid, his heart thumped. He had blonde, spiky hair and a big scowl on his face. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. He hadn't talked to 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 since before the accident. He wasn't even sure if the boy knew his mother had died. Even worse, Katsuki's desk was in front of his. And when he made it to his desk, he saw Midoriya. Deku. He questioned. A big glare crossed his face. The F are you doing here? He snapped. A sudden memory from the car hitting his mum popped into his head, and he shivered. Sit down. You obviously didn't go to the entrance ceremony. Midoriya mumbled sadly. I had an appointment. Why the hell did you transfer, shitty nerd? Couldn't handle being yelled at. Katsuki questioned. None of your business. He mumbled. Everyone shut up and sit down. A husky voice yelled. Everyone sat down and glanced up the front. A man with a black high ponytail stood up the front. He looked exhausted but had nice attire on. He wore a dark gray button-up shirt with black jeans and leather shoes. I'm your homeroom teacher for the rest of high school, Aizawa. I want to sleep, but unfortunately we have things to do this morning, he said. He did the roll, then told everyone to open up their laptops. They had to sign up with their new school emails and learn to use a school program website. That's all they did for the first lesson, but the second lesson was an elective. Midoriya had science, which remained in his classroom. Some of sport kids left, including Mina and Katsuki, but most remained. A teacher came in to teach the lesson, and Midoriya loved it. He answered all the questions he could, which was all of them, and the teacher already loved his enthusiasm. After that lesson was lunch. Midoriya sat with Todoroki and they both ate the lunch Midoriya had prepared that morning. Momo and Mina eventually joined them too. A girl with short brown hair walked up to their table and nervously stood there. I'm Uraraka Achiko. I'm in your homeroom, could I please sit with you? She pleaded. Sure, take a seat. Momo smiled. Uraraka thanked them and sat down. I haven't been able to make friends yet, and I'm not boarding here. So you live close? Momo asked. Yes. I live a 5-minute walk from here, and we don't have much money. So I couldn't afford to board here anyway. She blushed a little. Fair enough, this school is expensive. Midoriya smiled at the girl, everyone blushed. Midoriya, I told you to stop smiling, it's too precious for this dark world. Todoroki mumbled. I don't understand what you mean though. Midoriya pouted. Mina and Momo chuckled. Midoriya sighed and leaned himself back into his chair. The bell sounded through the school, and everyone started packing up their lunch. See you around, Uraraka. Midoriya smiled and went to his class. His final lesson of the day was math, and once again he was answering all the questions. He completed all the set work neatly into his book, then got extension work to do. The day ended much quicker than he thought it would, and he started packing his stuff at the end of the day. Midoriya. A voice called. Midoriya spun around. Aizawa was standing at the door, looking at him. Can you come with me? Bring your stuff too, he said, or demanded. Yes, sir. Midoriya said as he swung his bag over his shoulder. He looked at Todoroki. I'll see you later, you don't need to wait for me, he said, then he walked up to Aizawa. Come with me, Aizawa said as he walked off. Midoriya followed the man, nervous as if he'd done something wrong. He took Midoriya into the staff room and sat down in a small lounge area. Take a seat, he mumbled. Midoriya sat down on the other couch. Aizawa took out a clipboard and looked at a sheet of paper. You're expelled, he said. What? Midoriya gasped. Aizawa snickered, then smiled. Just kidding, that was worth your reaction. Aizawa smirked. Midoriya sighed. So I'm not expelled. No. I brought you here because we seem to have made some mix-ups in your personal details. Your dad isn't Izuku Midoriya, is it? Aizawa asked. No, he's my uncle but my guardian. Midoriya explained. Okay. Then what about Inko Midoriya? She's your auntie, he asked. Midoriya flinched, then looked down. She's my mum. But she passed away a couple months ago, so Izuku is my guardian. Midoriya explained. Aizawa remained silent for a bit, then wrote some things on the sheet. Then you're my problem child now, Aizawa asked. What does that mean? Midoriya asked. Do you have mental health issues? He asked. I don't know. Midoriya mumbled. Oh then. Aizawa wrote down on a blue sheet and sat it down on the table between them. Go see the school doctor and get a mental health care plan. Midoriya mumbled. Right now. Then bring me back the results, so I can keep an eye on you, Aizawa said. Midoriya took the sheet and stood up. See you later. Izuku laid on the couch and went to sleep. Midoriya awkwardly left the staff room and looked around. He had no idea where the school doctor was. Third person Midoriya eventually found the doctor. She likes to call herself Recovery Girl. When Midoriya showed her the paper Izuku had given him, she started asking him lots of questions. Some personal, others were just general. He had to fill out a sheet and circle the things that applied to him. In the end, she wrote things down on an online sheet and printed it off. She stood next to him and showed him the sheets of paper. You have anxiety, PTSD, and depression. And I fear you could be developing a psychosis-related issue. Come to me once every fortnight. I'll send you an email when I want you to come in. She explained. Oh, thank you for your help, miss. Midoriya smiled. No problem. Have a good afternoon, she said. Midoriya bowed, then left the room with the sheets of paper. He felt confused as to why he had depression, but decided it did make sense in the end. He already knew he had anxiety. It was diagnosed when he was younger. But PTSD. Thinking about that made him scared. Sometimes it can take a long time for help to work with that illness. He knocked on the door to the staff room, and a teacher that he'd never seen opened it. I am here to see Izuku. Midoriya mumbled. Come in, he's on the couch, she said. Midoriya walked in. She took him to the couch where Izuku was asleep. She poured her cup of water over his head. He opened his eyes and glared at her. 𝗀𝗡𝗋? He growled at the other teacher. Midoriya gasped at the naughty word he had said. A kid is here to see you. She poked her tongue out. He looked at Midoriya and sat up. Sit down, Izuku said. The other teacher walked off. Midoriya sat down and stared at his now soaked homeroom teacher. Can I see the papers? He said. Midoriya handed him the papers. He skimmed through them. Oh, you self-harm. Izuku glanced around the boy. Midoriya flinched, then nervously nodded. Not often. He mumbled. That's fine, I'm not going to yell at you. So, you're one of the problem children in the class. Izuku said. What does that mean? Midoriya asked. Well, you've got some kind of problem that I'll do my best to help you with, though I'm not good at feelings. I'll keep an eye out. I've got my eye on another kid, spiky blonde hair. I think he will be a problem child because he has anger issues. Izuku explained. Oh, thank you. Midoriya tilted his head to the side. Izuku flicked through the pages. Well, take this with you. You can go now, problem child, Izuku said, as he handed his sheets to Midoriya. Midoriya took the sheets and bowed, then began walking back through the school to get to his dorm. He took out his phone and texted Tododeku apologizing that he was so late, but he was on his way now. He let out a quiet sigh as he walked through the garden in his school. The sun was setting. The sky was painted with many different colors. Midoriya stared, mesmerized by the sight. It wasn't long before he made it to the dormitory building. He took the lift up to his floor, then traveled to his door, which was right at the end of the hallway. He tapped his ID on the door and walked into his house. Tododeku stood in the kitchen, cooking up food. He glanced towards Midoriya and smiled. Welcome back. I'm making soba. Tododeku greeted. Midoriya smiled and put his bag on the chair. Sounds good, Midoriya said. Midoriya stretched, then walked into his room. He changed out of his uniform and into some casual clothes, then walked back into the kitchen. Can I help you with anything? Midoriya asked. I'm nearly done. Can you set the table? He asked. Midoriya nodded, then happily set the table for them both. Tododeku sat food on the table, and they both sat down. Thank you for the food. Midoriya smiled, then ate. It was around midnight. Midoriya was restlessly rolling around in his sleep. He was stuck with the same scene playing out in his head. He woke up abruptly and laid there, shivering and taking sharp breaths. Thoughts were taking over his mind. He rolled out of bed and opened his cupboard. He shoved his hand into the pocket of one of his jackets, then pulled out a pencil sharpener blade. He snuck into the bathroom and stood by the sink. After slipping his long-sleeve pajama shirt off, he placed the blade on his shoulder and pushed it into his skin. He dragged it along his arm with a little bit of pressure, so it pierced the skin. As it did, he let out a raspy breath. He stared at the small wound, as little drops of BLD formed where the skin had broke. The thoughts didn't stop, so he worked on the same cut. He was making it deeper and deeper, and though it hurt, he hadn't noticed how deep it was. It took a while before he snapped back to reality, and he realized just how bad the cut was. He hadn't hit any major veins or arteries, but BLD was dripping out and not stopping. He panicked. He grabbed some toilet paper and wet it with the faucet water. He wiped the BLD that was already going down his arm, then held the wet paper on the wound. It stung, and he was only really feeling it now. He flushed the bloody paper down the toilet, then poked his head out of the bathroom. He sighed when he didn't see Todoroki. He picked up his shirt and rushed to his room. He closed his door behind himself and went to his cupboard. He put the blade away and grabbed microport tape from his cupboard and placed it over the still bleeding wound. BLD soaked through the tape. He panicked and put a couple layers on, then pulled his shirt back on. He laid in his bed and stared at the ceiling. He didn't feel tired at all. He felt too scared to sleep anyway. He spent the rest of the night unable to sleep, too scared to sleep, and in the end only got a few minutes before dawn. Third person the next morning, Midoriya decided to get out of bed earlier than usual. He hadn't gotten more than a wink of sleep and was sick of lying around. He was cooking up breakfast for Todoroki and himself, though he was half asleep. "You're up early," Todoroki said as he walked out of his room. Midoriya glanced over at the taller boy and smiled. "Yeah." He mumbled. "You look exhausted. Did you have a bad sleep?" he asked as he walked up to the shorter boy and inspected his drowsy face. "Yeah." Midoriya mumbled. He glanced back at what he was cooking and flipped it. "Breakfast will be ready soon." Midoriya mumbled. "Wait, thanks," Todoroki said as he walked into the bathroom. Midoriya sighed. He closed his eyes for a moment, then felt heat sting his finger. He opened his eyes and backed away from the fry pan. His finger felt hot. "Oops," he mumbled. He held his burnt finger under the tap. He stood there for a while, brainlessly staring at the running water. He felt exhausted. Eventually Todoroki got out of the shower and helped Midoriya finish off the food. They sat down together and ate quietly. Todoroki glanced at Midoriya's finger. "Did you burn your finger?" Todoroki asked. Midoriya looked at his finger, then nodded. "Somehow," Midoriya murmured. Todoroki stood up, then took an ice pack from the freezer. "Here," he said as he handed it to Midoriya. "Thanks," Midoriya mumbled as he took the ice pack from his roommate. He held it on his finger and sighed. "Do you not feel well?" Todoroki asked. "I'm fine. Just didn't get much sleep," Midoriya mumbled. "Then, you should nap when school finishes today," Todoroki mentioned. Midoriya nodded. The day at school was slow, but Midoriya stayed focused. He enjoyed school, found it rather easy, or easier than he believed the elite school would be. He finished all the work in class, and did extension work. For their third lesson, they had Izuku for self-study. Midoriya had nothing to do, so he happily searched different chemicals in pyroclastic flow on his laptop. Izuku walked up to his table and tapped on it. "What are you working on?" Izuku asked. "Oh, I finished everything in class, so I'm researching chemicals in pyroclastic flow," Midoriya replied. "Pyrowada." Izuku sighed. "If you're not busy, can you help me return books from my commerce class?" "Oh sure." Midoriya stood up. "I've got something to do. Momo is in charge of the class." Izuku stated to the class, then walked off. Midoriya followed quickly behind. They walked down the long hallway, then down some stairs. They went into a classroom with 3 written on the door. A couple students were listening to a teacher in a math class. "We are picking up textbooks, don't mind us," Izuku said. The teacher nodded. The two walked to one side of the classroom where a pile of books were. "Give me a second, I need to tick off names of the books that are here," Izuku said. Midoriya nodded and looked towards the board. The teacher was writing up a complex equation and explaining it to the class. Midoriya gasped and raised his hand. The teacher awkwardly looked at him. "Yes," the teacher asked. "You made a mistake. That's de Moivre's theorem, right?" Midoriya asked. "Yes, it is." The teacher looked at the mountain of writing on the board, searching for the mistake. Midoriya walked up to the board and picked up a marker. He erased a couple parts. You put this here instead, then you square it by that number. Midoriya explained as he wrote on the board. Oh, my mistake. Do you know how to finish this equation? The teacher asked. Easy. Midoriya smiled. He began writing more under the equation and finished it. Aren't you a first year? The teacher questioned. Midoriya glanced up at the teacher. Yes. He mumbled. You're not learning this at the moment then? The teacher said. No, I already knew this. Midoriya smiled. Izuku and the teacher looked at each other. Maybe get him tested. You're teaching self-study now, aren't you? The teacher asked Izuku. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Izuku handed Midoriya a pile of books. Tested? Midoriya questioned. Izuku walked out of the room with the rest of the books. Midoriya followed him. Sometimes, when a kid is smart, we can give them a test and move them up to a class that meets their skill. Izuku explained. Oh. Midoriya looked at the books he was holding. They were law books. Do you enjoy math? Izuku asked. Yeah, it's fun. I like the satisfaction of solving a complex equation. Midoriya smiled. I can't relate. I only do the math that's necessary in business. Izuku said. They walked into the school library and to the return desk. That makes sense, but it's nice to know how to do complex things. I find that I'm scared of things I don't know, like most people are. Midoriya placed the pile of books on the desk. Yeah. Well, that's human nature. Izuku smiled. The two walked back towards the class. Would you like to do complex math? Izuku asked. Yeah, I think so. The stuff we are doing now is easy. Midoriya mumbled. Easy. The stuff first years do at this school is the stuff third years do at other schools. Izuku said. I was doing the math we do in class in my first year of middle school. Midoriya mumbled. As extension work? Izuku asked. Yeah. Midoriya smiled. Izuku sighed. Then I'll get you the test now, go back to class. Midoriya nodded and walked into the classroom. Izuku continued walking to the office. It wasn't long before Izuku returned with a couple sheets of paper. He sat them on Midoriya's desk. Do what you can here. Bring it to me when you're done. Izuku stated. Midoriya worked through the sheets with a smile. For him, it was easy and fun. An hour later, the bell that signifies the end of the day went. Midoriya walked up to Izuku and gave him the sheets of paper, then he went back to his desk. Ready? Todoroki said as he walked up to Midoriya's table. Yep. Midoriya grinned. He swung his bag over his shoulder then headed off with his roommate. I don't feel tired anymore, maybe because my brain had been busy working all day. Midoriya said. You should still take a nap. I'll prepare dinner. Todoroki suggested. Sounds good, thanks. Midoriya smiled. The pair traveled to the dorms and to their room. Todoroki got started on dinner, while Midoriya had a nap. Third person, it had been 2 weeks since school had started. Midoriya was moved up to third year math, but apart from that not a lot had happened. He hadn't been able to get a lot of sleep. It was a struggle to manage to fall asleep, and every time he did he would wake up a couple hours later from the nightmare. It was getting worse and worse. He was only getting a couple hours of sleep each night. Though he was getting used to it. He was just glad he hadn't been waking Todoroki up. Today was like the rest. It was a Saturday night, and he was hopelessly lying awake in his bed. He tossed and turned, trying to get comfortable, but nothing was working. He decided to put on headphones and listen to music. The music helped him calm down, and he eventually fell asleep. But like every night, he had the same nightmare. But now, his mother would say it should have been you. And everyone would glare at him. He woke up 2 hours later with tears streaming down his face. His heart was uncontrollably thudding, though he felt like he couldn't breathe. He scrambled to his cupboard and slid it open. He reached to the back where there was a small pencil case, and grabbed it then ran out of his room. He stumbled into the bathroom and closed the door. He sat on the toilet and pulled up his sleeve. On his wrist were a few evenly spaced out scars. He opened the small pencil case and took out a blade. He sliced it across his wrist, then watched as the blood trickled down his arm. The pain made him calm down a little, so he made another one. Then another and another, until he had made 10 neatly positioned cuts on his arm. He walked over to the sink, then turned on the tap. He washed off all the blood, then wrapped his arm up. Midoriya. His roommate called. Midoriya flinched. He quickly cleaned up and threw the pencil case into the back of the cupboard, not caring that there was blood left on his blade. Why? Midoriya meekly squeaked. Are you okay? You've been in there a while. Todoroki mumbled. Midoriya pulled his sleeve over his bandage's arm, then opened the door and stepped out. I'm okay. Midoriya forced a smile. Todoroki stared at his face. Your smile looks tainted. What do you mean? Midoriya tilted his head. Todoroki held both of Midoriya's hands, then looked alerted. He raised both Midoriya's hands and stared at them. What's wrong? Midoriya nervously mumbled. This hand is cold. And slightly discolored, and a bit swollen. Todoroki said. Midoriya knew all that was because of the lack of blood flow through his arm and hand, because he had been cutting. That's because my arm is still healing from when it was broken. Midoriya mumbled. Oh. Todoroki let go of his hands. Well, you look tired, Midoriya. Do you want to sleep in my bed? Last time you slept well. Midoriya stared at him. He didn't want to feel like a burden. But he was exhausted. Only if you're okay with it. Midoriya mumbled. I'm fine with it. Todoroki grabbed Midoriya's hand and walked into his room. Todoroki rolled out his futon onto the floor, then closed the curtain. He picked Midoriya up. Bedtime. Todoroki grinned. I can walk. Midoriya squirmed in his grasp. Todoroki placed the smaller boy on the bed and pulled the blanket over him. But you didn't. Todoroki teased. Midoriya smiled. Yeah. Thank you. Midoriya mumbled. Todoroki smiled. He was happy to see Midoriya's real smile. He turned off the lights, then laid down on the futon. Night, Midoriya. Todoroki mumbled. Good night. Midoriya yawned and sunk into the comfy bed. He somehow felt comforted by being around someone when going to sleep. It was like his negative thoughts just disappeared. He was more focused on how lucky he felt to have a nice roommate. It wasn't long before the warmth of Todoroki's bed accompanied him into his slumber. Todoroki fell asleep too. Though, again after around an hour, Midoriya woke up from the nightmare. He pulled at his hair, trying to make the thoughts go away. Todoroki's eyes opened and he glanced up at Midoriya. Midoriya. What's wrong? Todoroki asked. Midoriya's eyes darted towards Todoroki. His eyes filled with tears when he realized he had woken him up. Todoroki got up then sat on the bed. If you're struggling, tell me. You don't need to suffer alone. Todoroki said. Midoriya shook his head. I don't want to throw my problems at you. Midoriya mumbled. Todoroki sighed, then hugged the smaller boy. You won't get anywhere with that mindset. Todoroki said. Midoriya hugged Todoroki reluctantly. They sat silently for a bit. It should have been me. Midoriya quietly mumbled. The accident. What do you mean? Todoroki asked calmly. I should have been killed. Not her. Not her. He mumbled. Don't say that. That's not true. No one should have died. Todoroki said. Midoriya stained Todoroki's shirt with his tears. Why does this always happen? Midoriya looked up at Todoroki. His eyes made him look broken. Why me? My mom's gone now. She was all I had. He cried. Todoroki said nothing. Midoriya cried. Todoroki pulled him into a tight hug. I don't get it. Some people have it so easy. But me? I've been bullied my whole life. People would tell me to kill myself. I couldn't do that because Mum loved me. But now she's gone, so what's the point anymore? Midoriya muttered. He desperately tugged on Todoroki's shirt. Todoroki didn't know what to say, so he sat quietly. When Midoriya calmed down a little, he decided to speak. Midoriya. You have friends, I'm sure they all love you. I love you. In a non-gay way. Todoroki explained. Midoriya looked up at him and smiled. You're weird. Thank you though. He mumbled. Todoroki smiled. But I mean it. He said. Midoriya laid down. Can you sleep in the bed with me? Midoriya asked. Oh. Todoroki laid down. If I have a nightmare. And I wake you. Please wake me up. Midoriya mumbled. Sure. Todoroki smiled. Midoriya sunk into the bed and fell asleep. Todoroki watched him sleep for a while. In his head, he replayed his sister's words. Don't fall for your roommate. But he believed he was failing, because he wanted to protect the boy in front of him forever. Third person, the two roommates slept soundly together. For the first time in a couple months, Midoriya didn't wake up from any nightmares. They slept for 7 hours, into the late morning of Sunday, and Todoroki was the first to wake up. When he opened his eyes, he saw a green mop of hair nuzzled into his chest. A small smile crossed his face, but he tried to avoid gay thoughts and failed. The taller boy managed to slide out of bed without waking Midoriya. He walked to the bathroom and did his business, then looked at himself in the mirror. I need to shave. He mumbled. He opened the cupboard and looked around the shelves. He noticed a small pencil case at the back of the shelf and pulled it out. He opened it up and looked inside. Wound tape, bandages, and blades. He inspected one of the blades and noticed dry BLD, then he knew exactly what its purpose was. It was the afternoon. Midoriya and Todoroki were playing video games together while eating snacks. And though they were both enjoying themselves, Todoroki couldn't help but think about the pencil case. He had hidden it, taken it away from the cupboard. He didn't know whether it was the right thing to do or not, but he didn't want Midoriya to hurt himself. What would you like for dinner? Midoriya asked. Oh, I'm not sure. Todoroki replied. Midoriya opened the fridge and gasped. We have no food. He mumbled. Todoroki looked into the fridge. There was a bit of fruit, juice, and milk. Oh, I guess we haven't been to the shops since last weekend. Todoroki said. We should make that a Saturday thing. We go to the shops and buy food for the week. Midoriya smiled. With my dad's card. Todoroki held up a shiny card. You still have that? Midoriya chuckled. Don't tell my sister. Todoroki smiled. The two of them took a trip to the shops and brought enough food for the week, with Todoroki's dad's credit card. Midoriya got started on dinner while Todoroki unpacked the groceries. Did we have English homework? Todoroki asked. Nope. Midoriya said. Oh good. I thought we had homework for a moment. Todoroki sighed. I don't think we did. Unless you have math homework. Midoriya mentioned. No, I did it all in class. Todoroki said. Midoriya set out the food on the table. So, is your dad rich then? I mean, a golden credit card is a bit much. Midoriya sat down. Yes. We run the 𝐴𝐴𝐴 company. Todoroki sat down. No way. 𝐴𝐴𝐴. Isn't that the second biggest business in Japan? Midoriya beamed. Yes. The 𝐴𝐴𝐴 is first, but both companies are partnered, so I don't think they will try to kill each other. Todoroki said. Kill. Midoriya mumbled. Oh, sometimes the big companies send out spies to gather information and assassins to kill. They're rivals. It's against the law to have spies though. Todoroki said. Midoriya mumbled. Yeah, there's a big rival company that are stressing because the president of their company had a kid, but the kid killed himself because he didn't want to take over the company. Now they have no successor. I think the president is trying to adopt. Todoroki explained. That's scary. Wait, are you going to take over your father's business? Midoriya asked. Yes, I can't wait to overthrow that old man. Todoroki smiled. Midoriya smiled. What about the 𝐴𝐴𝐴 president? Does he have a successor? Midoriya asked. Yes. He's a business major at this school, Mirio Togata. He's got pretty good grades. The 𝐴𝐴𝐴 president offered him his position. I don't think he is getting adopted though. Todoroki said. Oh, Togata-senpai. He's in my math class. Midoriya grinned. Ha, that's cool. Todoroki smiled at the boy's grin. But, Midoriya, you should be careful. Lots of business presidents come to this school looking for successors. You had the best exam results right. They might come after you. Todoroki explained. Oh, but I want to work with science when I finish school. I don't want to take over a business. Midoriya mumbled. That sounds cool. Then, you'd have to tell them that if they try to offer you their position. Todoroki smiled. Hey. Midoriya smiled. The two boys ate together quietly. Midoriya seemed happy, but Todoroki was thinking again about the pencil case. Midoriya, do you want to sleep in my room again tonight? Todoroki asked. Midoriya looked up at him and smiled kindly. I don't want to invade your personal space again. Midoriya declined. I don't mind. But it's up to you. If you wake up again from a nightmare, come wake me. Todoroki shoved a spoon of rice into his mouth. Okay. Midoriya said. Though, he wasn't going to wake up his roommate. He didn't want to annoy him while he was sleeping. After dinner, Midoriya showered then got ready for bed. But before he got into his covers, he stared at the bed with a frown. He was scared that he'd be unable to fall asleep, or that he'd have a nightmare again. Please let me sleep. He mumbled, then he climbed into the bed. After laying there for a while, he fell asleep. Though that night was the same as them all. An hour later he woke up, this time he let out a scream. He covered his mouth when he came to his senses. Thoughts and voices were rushing through his head. You killed her. It's your fault she's dead. It should have been you. Why you still alive? His eyes were wide open, and he was trembling. He stumbled out of his bed and ran to the bathroom. Murder. Failure. He opened the cupboard and felt around for the pencil case, but he couldn't find it. The thoughts wouldn't stop. He felt like he was going insane. He fell to his knees by the cupboard and desperately scratched at his wrist. His nails didn't take long to graze his skin. But 2 hands latched themselves around his wrists and pulled his arms away from each other. The young teen was pulled into a hug. He glanced up quickly in a startled manner and saw Todoroki. Please, don't hurt yourself. Third person, please don't hurt yourself. Todoroki pleaded the boy that he held in his arms. Midoriya's eyes faded a little. He was trembling. Did you take it from the cupboard? He mumbled. Yes. Sorry. I didn't want you to hurt yourself. Todoroki said. Oh, I see. Midoriya mumbled quietly. You killed her. Should have been you. Midoriya began to panic. He squirmed out of Todoroki's grasp. I need it, he said as he ran off to his room. Todoroki got up and followed him. Midoriya reached into the pocket of his jacket and pulled out a spare blade. He glanced towards Todoroki and pushed him out. Ignore me, go to bed. Midoriya panicked as he closed his door on his roommate. He sat in front of the door and pulled up his sleeve. It should have been you. Midoriya sliced the blade across his arm. The thoughts calmed down a little. Midoriya. Midoriya opened the door. Todoroki knocked repeatedly on the door. Midoriya ignored him and stared at the BLD that was dripping down his arm. Todoroki tried to open the door, but Midoriya was sitting in front of it so it wouldn't budge. Please. I can help you. Todoroki pleaded. Midoriya held the blade on his arm and carefully drew a vertical line. Sorry, Mum. Sorry for killing you. He whispered, tears were filling his eyes and making his vision cloudy. He continued deepening the vertical wound in his arm. The balcony door swung open, making a loud noise. Midoriya flinched, which forced the blade across his arm in a diagonal direction. BLD spurted out of the wound. Midoriya dropped the blade and instinctively put his hand over the wound. Todoroki rushed over. SHT, Todoroki stressed. Language. Midoriya mumbled. Is now the best time to comment on that? Todoroki asked. It's fine. I can deal with this. I'm okay now, Midoriya mumbled. Pass me any shirt from my cupboard. Todoroki stared at the boy, then pulled a shirt out from the cupboard. Midoriya put it over the wound and applied pressure. Please get me a sock, a long one. Midoriya mumbled. Todoroki rummaged through the drawers, then handed Midoriya a long sock. Midoriya tied it around his upper arm tightly. He let out a shaky breath. That's going to cut off the circulation. Todoroki said. I'd rather a temporarily paralyzed arm than circulatory collapse to occur. This artery is luckily not a major one and I've only slightly damaged it. It should clot soon since I'm only producing about 110 millimeters of systolic pressure. Midoriya closed his eyes and held his arm above his head. He pressed his fingers on his neck. 89. He mumbled. I'll call an ambulance. Todoroki pulled out his phone. No. If you do that I'll disturb everyone. Sorry. You should go sleep. Midoriya mumbled. Stop it. Todoroki spat. Midoriya flinched and opened his eyes. Todoroki looked hurt. You're always trying to do things on your own. Won't you let me help? I want to help you. Todoroki stated. Midoriya stared at him. The two remained silent for a bit. You're right. Sorry. I've always been independent. I'm not used to receiving help. But please don't call anyone. Midoriya said weakly. Then what can I do? Todoroki asked. 90. Midoriya mumbled. Could you clean up the BLD on the floor? Midoriya asked. Yes. Do you want me to help you get to bed? Todoroki asked. I can do it. Midoriya mumbled. Todoroki frowned and picked the boy up. He carried him to the bed and laid him down carefully. You just relax. Todoroki said. He walked out of the room to collect cleaning supplies. Midoriya placed his fingers back on his neck and kept his injured arm elevated. 102, he mumbled. Todoroki walked in and began cleaning. Midoriya inhaled slowly, but sharply. Todoroki. So far I'm losing around 15% of my BLD volume. My heart rate is elevated. If I pass out, call someone. I think I've gone into class 2 hemorrhagic shock. Midoriya mumbled. Shouldn't we call someone now? What if it's too late later? Midoriya, I know you don't want to, but it's the right thing to do. Todoroki said. No, because if you do, I'll be too scared to ever ask you for help. I'll be afraid that you'll tell. Midoriya mumbled. His eyes began to tear up. Okay. Just explain what this hemorrhagic stuff is. Todoroki sat on the end of his bed. Hemorrhagic shock is the depletion of intravascular volume through BLD loss to the point of being unable to match the tissue's demand for oxygen. Midoriya mumbled. Easy English. When you lose BLD and your red BLD cells can't transport oxygen to organs and tissue at the required speed. Todoroki thought hard. Okay. And what's class 2? He asked. When you lose between 15% and 30% of your total BLD volume, I think. Unless it was 15 to 40%, I can't remember. Systolic pressure may fluctuate but normally stays the same. Heart rate increases to between 100 and 125 BPM. Midoriya said. Todoroki nodded and sighed. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do. I don't know any other ways to make the voices and thoughts go away. Midoriya mumbled. Stay with me. That worked yesterday, didn't it? Todoroki smiled. But Midoriya went to speak, but Todoroki cut him off. I don't mind. You're not getting in my way. I told you, Midoriya, I want to help. I'll do what I can. Todoroki held Midoriya's hand. Midoriya smiled a little. Around 10 minutes later, Midoriya took the sock off his arm and unraveled the shirt. The bleeding had finally stopped. He carefully placed a wet, clean shirt on the wound to clean it, then let it dry naturally. Any little bump and it'll bleed. Midoriya mumbled. He placed cut-up cloth on top of the wound, then wrapped wound tape around it to hold it in its place. Todoroki carefully bandaged up the teen's arm and placed a sling over his head. He leaned down and kissed Midoriya's hand. They're all better. Todoroki smiled. Midoriya blushed. My mum used to do that. Yeah. I can kiss all your injuries better now. Todoroki smiled, wondering if that sounded gay. You're a nice guy, Todoroki. Midoriya giggled. Todoroki carried Midoriya into his room and carefully laid him down. He hopped in the bed next to him and carefully held him. Midoriya fell asleep almost instantly. Third-person Midoriya was fast asleep, but Todoroki was wide awake. He was keeping an eye on the boy in front of him, making sure he didn't feel any discomfort. Midoriya slept calmly for a while, but just as Todoroki was about to drift off, Midoriya started breathing fast and panicking. Todoroki watched him, then pulled his head into his chest. It's okay. Todoroki whispered. Tears soaked Todoroki's shirt, though Midoriya eventually calmed down and slept soundly. He twirled the teen's hair in his fingers, then pushed it out of his face. The next morning, the two of them woke up when Todoroki's alarm went off. Midoriya was snuggled into the taller boy, while Todoroki's arms were around him. Todoroki blushed and thought, I bet this looks gay. Midoriya yawned and rolled over. Morning. Midoriya mumbled. Todoroki sat up. Morning. How do you feel? He asked. Fine. Midoriya mumbled. Are you sure? You could go see the nurse just in case. Todoroki said. No. Midoriya mumbled. He sat up, then held his head in his hands. Does your head hurt? Todoroki asked. He placed his hand on the boy's forehead. You have a fever. Maybe take the day off. Todoroki suggested. No, it's fine. I'm just a bit anemic because of the blood loss. Midoriya mumbled. I'll make breakfast, you rest a bit more. Todoroki said. Midoriya laid back down. I'm sorry for causing you trouble. Midoriya sighed. Don't say that. I'm the one who scared you and made you hit the vein. Todoroki said. It was an artery. But I was the one cutting in the first place. Midoriya argued. Irrelevant, you weren't attempting suicide, right? He mentioned. No. Midoriya said. Then, you wouldn't have been trying to hit any major veins or arteries. That was my fault. Midoriya pouted and shut his eyes. I disagree. He said. Todoroki went to protest, but Midoriya's stomach growled and interrupted them. Midoriya blushed, Todoroki smiled. I'll go make food, you can rest. Todoroki said as he left the room. Midoriya sighed and held up both his hands. One was pale, pinker and swollen. He couldn't move his fingers much. He sighed and sat up. He made little fists with his hands. I'll be happy for Mum. He smiled, feeling sudden motivation to try be happier. He walked out into the kitchen, where Todoroki was cooking up breakfast. Midoriya went into his room and got changed into his school clothes, then packed up his bag. Breakfast is ready. Todoroki yelled. Midoriya walked out of his room and sat down at the table. Todoroki sat a plate in front of him. Oh, you're already dressed. Todoroki sat down with his own plate and began eating. Yes, because we have to leave in 5 minutes. Midoriya smiled. Todoroki pulled out his phone and looked at the time, then shrieked. He shoved his food into his mouth, then ran to his room. Midoriya calmly ate with a little grin on. When he finished, he brushed his teeth and hair. Todoroki ran into the bathroom and brushed his teeth aggressively. Ready? Midoriya asked as he slipped his shoes on. Yes. Todoroki threw his bag over his shoulder and ran out the door. Midoriya calmly left their dormitory and headed towards the campus. They got to class a couple minutes before it started. Not everyone was there yet. We weren't even running late. Midoriya said to Todoroki. Nonsense. We could have been late. Todoroki sighed. Midoriya giggled. Oi, shitty Deku. A voice said. Midoriya turned around to see his old friend, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Kaken. Midoriya said. Don't talk to him that way. Todoroki said. Midoriya looked towards Todoroki and smiled. It's okay. Midoriya said. Deku. Mum wants you to come for dinner. Katsuki said. Oh, what? Midoriya asked. Friday. Bring your mum, I guess. He said. Midoriya flinched. Kaken. Midoriya mumbled. What? He snapped. You didn't hear. Midoriya looked away and fiddled with his fingers. Katsuki noticed the boy seemed different. Instead of the timid boy Midoriya normally was when they talked, he more upset and serious. He had enough human decency to tone down his behavior. Hear what? He asked in a 𝐶𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐾 voice. Mum and I were in an accident. She passed. That's why I transferred, because I live with my uncle. Midoriya said quietly, but loud enough for the blonde to hear. Katsuki stood there and stared at the boy in front of him. Even though he was a PP to the boy in middle school, they were good friends as kids, and their families loved each other. Mum did go to a funeral a few months ago. And she looked sad. But she didn't tell me anything. Katsuki said quietly, Did you see her there? Where? Midoriya asked. At the funeral, you idiot. He said. Oh no. I was in the ICU in an induced coma. Midoriya looked towards the ground with guilt. He felt horrible for not attending her funeral. Katsuki somehow felt lost for words. He didn't want to say anything that would offend him, since he respected Inko. Though, they were interrupted by the bell. Aizawa walked into the classroom. Sit down. He spat. Everyone made their ways to their seats. Aizawa did the roll, then everyone began chatting to one another. The tired teacher glanced at Midoriya, then walked up to his table. Oi, problem child. Come outside. He mumbled. But Midoriya said. He stood up and followed the teacher out of the classroom. They stood close to the door. You look pale today. And your eyes look exhausted. What's wrong? Aizawa folded his arms. Oh, I'm fine, Midoriya said. Izuku glared at the student, forming awkward silence between them. You're lying. What's wrong? Did something happen on the weekend? Izuku asked. No, really, but Midoriya insisted. No, maybe you're sick. Izuku pressed his hand on the boy's head. You have a fever. Midoriya sighed and looked away. I'm fine, really, Midoriya said. No, go to the nurse's office and rest, Izuku demanded. The bell rang for first period. Midoriya did a cheeky smile. Oh, I'll be late for math. Better go. Midoriya slipped past Izuku and went into the classroom. Izuku poked his head into the room. Midoriya. Don't ignore me, Izuku snapped. Midoriya swung his bag over his shoulder and left the room through the back entrance. I'll be late. Midoriya blankly smiled. Oi, problem child. You better go to the nurse. Izuku growled, but he quickly ran off to his class. Midoriya let out a relieved sigh as he climbed a flight of stairs. He went to the classroom that had 3 on it and walked in. There were only 7 people in the class, including himself. At UA, students stay with the same homeroom class for every subject. But they can move up or down according to their preference and knowledge. In Class 1A, if someone was struggling with the math, they could move down to 1B for math or 1C, etc. The sports student all took math, but at a different time to everyone else, and it was easier. That's the same with all their compulsory subject. Midoriya. Tododeku called. Midoriya looked towards the older boy and smiled. Good morning, Tododeku-senpai, Midoriya said as he took a seat. You look a bit pale today. Are you okay? He asked. Midoriya smiled. I'm okay. Oh, good. Tododeku smiled. The math teacher walked in. Everyone settled down, let's get started. Everyone pulled out their books and textbooks, then listened to the teacher. The whole class mostly understood the complex math they did. Midoriya and a couple others would answer all the questions. The class went fast for Midoriya because he loved math. He finished all the work in class, and some of the extension work before the class ended. He said goodbye before leaving the classroom, then walked back towards his own class. Though, he could feel his heart beating out of his chest and he felt out of breath. He got back to his classroom and slumped down into his chair. Todoroki walked up to the boy and handed him a chocolate milk. Here, you forgot food today, didn't you? Todoroki said as he poked a straw through his strawberry milk. Yeah, thanks, Midoriya said as he poked his straw into his chocolate milk. I forgot food too. I went to the vending machine, Todoroki said. Midoriya chuckled. They both talked for most of the short break with Momo and Mina. Then the bell went for the next lesson. They had English, which again went fast for Midoriya because he enjoyed it. For lunch, Todoroki went and brought sandwiches, then they sat down and talked with Momo and Mina. Their last lesson was self-study, with Izuku. Midoriya was finishing of a business assignment when Izuku walked up to him. Did you go to the nurse? He asked. Midoriya looked up at him. Maybe. Midoriya smiled. Izuku grabbed the boy's wrist and pulled him up. Midoriya's eyes widened. Let's go, Izuku said as he began dragging the boy out of the classroom. Midoriya felt like screaming. He could feel the wound opening up. It made him feel dizzy. Izuku-sensei. Midoriya could barely move his arm, so he couldn't pull it away. Pain was erupting from his arm, and so was BLD. He could feel the warm liquid. Izuku looked at the boy, then quickly let go. Have you cut? Izuku said. He looked somewhat worried. Midoriya held his arm. He felt dizzy and hot. He couldn't handle any more pain. I might pass out, Midoriya mumbled. Sorry. Quick, let's go. Izuku wrapped his arm around the boy's waist for support. Language, Midoriya hissed. He glared at Izuku, more like a pout than a glare. What? You're a teenager, aren't you? Get over swearing already. Izuku walked towards the infirmary with the boy. My mum said swearing is bad. Midoriya pouted. Build a bridge and get over it. Welcome to the real world, Izuku said. They walked into the infirmary. Swearing is a bad habit. Midoriya sighed. Not, it's not. Izuku growled. What's going on? Recovery girl asked. He's got a fever. And apparently he's been cutting, Izuku said. You didn't have to add in that last part. Midoriya sighed. Do the cuts need medical attention? Recovery girl asked. No, Midoriya lied. Well, lay down then. Take off your blazer. Recovery girl said as she opened a drawer. Midoriya slipped his blazer off, though he felt uncomfortable. The scars Minato had given him were visible without his blazer. But when he looked at the bandages around his other arm, he saw red wet stains. Aizawa pointed at the bandages. BLD. I thought you cut last night. Why is it bleeding? Aizawa asked. I did cut last night. You're open the wound. Midoriya placed his fingers on his neck to check his pulse. 96. He mumbled. 96, 96 what? Aizawa rushed over and began unraveling the bandages. Stop. If you unwrap that, it'll bleed more. The pressure is preventing excess BLD from escaping. Midoriya wrapped his arm back up. He had a sudden ringing in his ear, making him unable to hear, and his vision went hazy. What? I didn't pass out last night, so why now? Have I not produced enough RBC in the past 12 hours? Anemia? I'm dumb. My body must be having trouble producing a stable amount. Maybe I'll die. I'm probably back into class 2 of hemorrhagic shock. Midoriya thought to himself. Midoriya! Midoriya! Aizawa yelled. The ringing in Midoriya's ears subsided, and he could see a bit better. He was laying on a bed. I'm okay. Midoriya mumbled. We're going to call an ambulance, okay? Aizawa said. No. Midoriya snapped as he sat up quickly. His vision became impaired again. He held his head. I'm not going back there again. Not again. Midoriya mumbled. Have you seen the state you're in, kid? Aizawa said. Midoriya placed his fingers back on his neck. I'm only in class 2 of hemorrhagic shock. I'll be fine. Midoriya protested. Hemorrhagic shock. If you're even close to being in shock, you need emergency care. Why didn't you call for help? Recovery girl said. If you'd cut yourself on purpose, would you want to call emergency services when there are others who are dying from things they can't control? Others need that your bed more than I do. I know how to help myself with this. Midoriya explained. The two adults remained quiet. Midoriya laid down on the bed and pulled the blanket over his head. It's bad enough that I have to come to the infirmary and waste people's time here. I feel enough like a burden already. Midoriya mumbled. Recovery girl and Aizawa looked towards each other, then they both stepped out of the office. What do we do? Aizawa asked in a distressed tone. I might have to treat him here. She put her hands on her hips. After a discussion, the two walked into the infirmary again, but when they got to Midoriya, he was fast asleep. Did he faint? Aizawa asked. No, he's sleeping. She smiled. But Aizawa sighed. Aizawa eventually left, and recovery girl did what she could to help with the boy's fever and injuries. Though, she did her best not to wake him, because he needed the rest. Third person, I didn't proofread. Midoriya awoke when he heard someone calling his name. He looked up from the infirmary bed to see Todoroki sitting on the bed. Hey, I came to pick you up. Todoroki smiled. Midoriya yawned, then stretched. What's the time? Midoriya mumbled in a sleepy voice. It's 7 p.m. I've made dinner. Todoroki said. Oh, then let's go. Midoriya sat up, then pulled on his shoes. He noticed his wounded arm was wrapped up in an unfamiliar bandage. Where's recovery girl? Midoriya asked. She's behind the curtain. Todoroki said. Recovery girl slid the curtain aside and walked towards the boy. You're awake, she said. Midoriya bowed his head. Thank you for not sending me to hospital. Midoriya said. I decided that it was best we didn't, she said as she hopped onto a stall. Open your mouth. Midoriya opened his mouth. She put a thermometer in. He closed his mouth. Todoroki picked up Midoriya's blazer and handed it to him. Recovery girl took the thermometer out and looked at it. Midoriya took his blazer from Todoroki and slipped it on. It's a bit better. Still 39°102 F. Take tomorrow off. I'll email your teachers. Recovery girl said. What? No, I'm fine. Plus I have to hand up a business assignment tomorrow. Midoriya argued. Have you finished it? She asked. Midoriya mumbled. Then just email it, she said. Besides, Your fever will most likely get worse this afternoon. I know. It will, because I now have an even less stable amount of RBC and my body can't handle it blah blah blah. Midoriya sassed. He's not normally like this. Todoroki sighed. He's probably the kind of person who is an angel, but a devil when sick. Recovery girl said. But I'm just speaking logically. Midoriya pouted. Todoroki picked Midoriya up. Then I'll make sure he stays in bed. Todoroki said. Thank you. Recovery girl walked to her computer. Thanks for your help. Todoroki walked out of the infirmary. Hey, put me down, I can walk. Midoriya demanded. No. I think I'll hold you. Todoroki smiled. But Midoriya complained. The whole walk back to the dorm, Midoriya was trying to escape from Todoroki's grasp, but failed. The two of them had dinner together silently, then Midoriya had a shower. Are you sleeping in my room tonight? Todoroki asked. No, I don't want to steal your space. Midoriya dried his wet hair with a towel. Okay, but promise you'll come to me if you had a nightmare, or you're scared. Todoroki said. Okay. Midoriya smiled. The night. Todoroki waved as he walked into his room and closed the door. Midoriya walked into his room and hung his towel over the chair. He looked towards the bed. He could never sleep in his bed. He dawdled over and climbed under the covers. It was comfortable, but he couldn't sleep. Thoughts of his mother rushed through his head. As much as he wished for them to go away, they wouldn't. She's dead because of you, a voice cooed. The teen pushed his hands against his ears to block out the noises. Give me a break. Midoriya laid still with an emotionless frown. It didn't make sense to him why his nights always seemed so dismal. Perhaps it was a vulnerable time, a time where his thoughts could run wild without the distractions from people around him. Thoughts and voices convoluted from every direction. When he tried to ignore them, they would get louder and louder, leaving him in a panic. He hugged his pillow, then got up and stumbled into Todoroki's room. Todoroki was sitting at his desk, doing an assignment. Midoriya stared at him with teary eyes. Todoroki looked towards the short boy, then smiled. Welcome back. Todoroki teased. Midoriya hugged his pillow tighter and sunk his face into it. The heterochromia boy got up from his seat, then walked up to the shorter boy and pulled him into a hug. He let out a sigh. I'm glad you came. Todoroki mumbled. Am I not annoying you? Midoriya looked up at Todoroki. Tears were sitting on his eye, threatening to fall down his freckled cheeks. Not at all. Todoroki wiped the tears from his eyes, then placed his hand on the boy's head. You're still really warm. Midoriya's heart thudded, and his cheeks turned red. But I must be really sick, I just felt my heart thud. And now my chest feels tight. Midoriya checked his pulse. Todoroki stared at the boy, then chuckled. Midoriya, have you fallen for me? Those symptoms sound like love to me. Todoroki teased. What? Midoriya stammered. I can diagnose you if you want. Todoroki placed a finger under the boy's chin, then lifted his head up. Icha. Midoriya's face flushed red. Todoroki placed a soft kiss on the boy's cheek. Midoriya's heart thudded uncontrollably. He threw his hands over his beet-red face. Midoriya, are you in love with me? Todoroki crossed his arms with a satisfied grin. Midoriya slid down the wall and hid in his pillow. Quiet. Stop bullying me. Midoriya squeaked. Calm down. I'm just teasing you. Todoroki crouched down next to the teen. Midoriya pouted as he looked up at the young man in front of him. Maybe you're the one falling for me. Midoriya launched himself at the boy in front of him and pressed a kiss on his lips. They both fell to the ground, Midoriya on top of Todoroki. Todoroki's eyes widened at the scene in front of him. Midoriya pulled away from the kiss. Todoroki smirked and licked his lips. Aren't you a cute boy? Todoroki said. Midoriya blushed, collapsed onto Todoroki's stern body. Stop extending the intimacy. Midoriya complained. I'm supposed to be teasing you. You know I'm bi, right? Are you trying to make me fall for you? Todoroki mumbled as he sat up, holding the smaller boy in his arms. I know. I've known for a while. You've already fallen for me. Midoriya hugged his pillow and smiled. Todoroki looked startled. Every time you see me your pupils dilate. At first I thought you were happy to see me, but then I realized your eye, head and mouth movements were love semiotics. Midoriya smiled. Your body tells me everything. I've been confessed to enough, so my socially awkward self watched people for signs that they might confess to me in the future. So I am prepared to reject them. Midoriya leaned in close to Todoroki's face with a smirk on. Why did you reject them all? Todoroki blushed and backed away sheepishly. Because I didn't know most of them. I've even had guys confess to me, that's why the smaller boy winced and tugged on his hair abruptly. What's wrong? Todoroki looked alerted. OSHT. I forgot he had a fever. Todoroki internally yelled at himself. He picked the sickly boy up and placed him on the bed. I'll be back, Todoroki said as he rushed out of the room. He eventually came back with a glass of water and a cool, wet cloth. He handed Midoriya the water. Thanks. Midoriya mumbled as he took the water and sipped from it. Recovery girl said your fever would get worse. I completely forgot. Todoroki sighed. Midoriya gave him the water and laid down. Yeah. Midoriya mumbled. Todoroki laid the wet cloth on Midoriya's head. Midoriya pouted. That's cold. And I'm not a baby. You complain a lot when you're sick. Todoroki smiled. He carefully stroked Midoriya's cheek. Sorry. It's my fault you're sick. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. If you're gonna keep saying that, then take responsibility. Midoriya crossed his arms. Todoroki turned off the lights then climbed into bed next to Midoriya. Fine. I'll keep you company until you fall asleep. Todoroki smiled. Is this to satisfy your own longing? Midoriya looked up at the boy. Perhaps. Todoroki wrapped his arms around the smaller boy, then stroked his hair. Midoriya blushed a little. What's this? The little prince is blushing. Todoroki teased. No, I'm not. I'm ill. Midoriya pouted. And little prince? Well, you did say everyone confessed to you. Todoroki pulled the boy's cheek. Don't attack me. Midoriya mumbled. Oh. What gender do you swing for Midoriya? Todoroki eagerly asked. Katsudon and mochi. Midoriya mumbled. Food. Todoroki mumbled. Well, I guess I can be food. He smirked. Midoriya thought for a moment, then looked confused. Is that a SXL reference? I don't understand. It is. I could demonstrate by eating you up. Todoroki smiled. Midoriya scrunched up into a ball. Stay back. That's naughty stuff. Midoriya hissed. Todoroki took his hand off Midoriya's head. Fine. Midoriya grabbed Todoroki's hand and put it back on his head. I didn't say stop playing with my hair, I said don't be naughty. Todoroki smiled and twirled Midoriya's hair in his fingers. He wrapped his arm back around Midoriya's slim waist. Get some rest. Todoroki closed his eyes. Midoriya yawned, then closed his eyes. The two slept calmly in each other's arms for the whole night. Third person, did not proofread. Todoroki woke up early the next morning. His arms were tangled with Midoriya's. The smaller boy's innocent sleeping face made Todoroki blush. He carefully pushed his fingers through the green locks, then twirled them around his fingers. Midoriya pushed his head into Todoroki's hand and smiled a little in his sleep. Todoroki brushed the boy's soft cheeks with his thumb. Yeah. Maybe I am falling for you. Todoroki whispered as he pulled the boy into a warm embrace. He laid there admiring his roommate's face until his alarm went off. He grumpily rolled out of bed and turned off the alarm. Midoriya stretched and yawned, then opened his eyes. Good morning. Midoriya mumbled as he rubbed his tired eyes. Morning. I'll go make breakfast. Todoroki smiled and walked out of the room. Midoriya climbed out of bed and walked to his room. He slipped his school uniform on and traveled into the bathroom. After brushing his hair and teeth, he walked into the kitchen. Todoroki glared at him. You're sick. Go to bed. Todoroki demanded. Midoriya flinched. But I'm better now. I can go to school. No rest. Don't strain your appealing body. Todoroki poked his tongue out. Midoriya pouted. You really are falling for my charms. Todoroki walked up to the boy and placed his hand on his head. My, you're burning up. Todoroki sighed. Come along, let's get you changed and back into bed. No. Midoriya grabbed his bag and swung it over his shoulder, then ran out of the dorm. Todoroki turned the stove off and bolted after him. Midoriya, don't be a baby, Todoroki yelled. Midoriya spun his head around and poked out his tongue, but he bashed into someone while he wasn't looking. Midoriya gasped and looked towards the person he had bumped into. Momo. Midoriya grinned. Midoriya, why are you running around at this time of the morning? Momo asked, going to school. Midoriya mumbled. School doesn't start until an hour. Momo mentioned. Then why are you up? Midoriya asked. Because I had to return a book today. Momo explained. Todoroki ran up behind Midoriya and grabbed him. Gotcha. Todoroki sighed. Momo, help, he's attacking me. He's a bully. Midoriya complained. You're acting really different, Midoriya. You're not normally this lively. Momo tilted her head to the side, ignoring his cries for help. He's sick. The nurse told him to take the day off. He's trying to go to school. Todoroki pulled Midoriya's hands behind his back. He's lying. He's deceiving you. Midoriya cried. Momo placed her hand on Midoriya's head, then gasped. You are very warm. She placed her finger on his neck under his jaw. Your glands are swollen and your heart rate is high. I don't care. Midoriya pouted. If you strain yourself, you'll get an infection. Momo sighed. I'll help you, Shoto. Let's go. Momo walked towards the two roommates' dorm. Todoroki dragged Midoriya back. Midoriya was too weak to escape from his grasp. When they made it into the dorm, Momo opened Midoriya's bedroom door. You go get changed, I'll make food. Todoroki pat Midoriya on the head and walked off to his room. Midoriya sighed and walked into his room. Get changed into something comfy, then come out. Momo said. She left Midoriya's room and walked into the kitchen. You're making okay, right? Momo asked. Yeah. Todoroki mumbled. Momo walked up next to him. You're not falling for Midoriya, right? Momo asked. Todoroki flinched. I knew it. You never care much about anyone and now you're suddenly helping a sick child. Momo sighed. Not my fault, he's so cute. Plus I don't think I've fallen for him yet. Todoroki pouted. Yet, I swear. You better not ruin his innocent heart. Momo folded her arms. Todoroki glanced at the girl. So you'd let me date him? Todoroki asked. Yeah. But he might not be into men. Momo said. Midoriya walked out of his room. Momo looked over at him. Let's get you into bed then. Momo smiled. Midoriya crossed his arms and pouted. I'm staying in Todoroki's bed. Midoriya stated. Momo looked towards Todoroki. Todoroki smiled. That's okay. Todoroki said. Momo shivered. You never smile. She muttered before walking into Todoroki's room. Midoriya followed her and crawled into Todoroki's bed. Why do you want Todoroki's bed? She asked. Because his smell is comforting. Midoriya pulled the blanket over his head. Momo had a quizzical look on her face, but shrugged. Well, do you want anything? She asked. No. Midoriya mumbled. All right. Do you need medicine? She asked. Nope. Don't want it. Midoriya stated. Todoroki walked in with a bowl of 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Midoriya. Midoriya poked his head out from the blanket. When he spotted the food, he slowly sat up. Todoroki sat the bowl in Midoriya's lap and handed him a spoon. Thank you. Midoriya mumbled as he shoveled a spoon of 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 into his mouth. Once tasting the food, he made a beatific expression. Todoroki looked satisfied with Midoriya's reaction and left the room. Momo followed Todoroki. I better head off. See you in class. Momo opened the door to the dorm and left. Todoroki made a cup of tea, then took it into Midoriya. I'm going to school now. You rest up, text me if you need anything and I'll come. Todoroki said as he sat the tea down. Midoriya watched Todoroki from the bed, then nodded. Todoroki waved and left the dorm. Midoriya got out his phone. There was a message from his uncle. Uncle Hiraku, I got a girlfriend. She's got some nice melons. How's school? Good work. School is good, but the nurse is forcing me to take today off because she thinks I'm sick. Oh no, are you okay? I'm fine, just have a fever. I greater than I wanted to go to school today, but my roommate wouldn't let me. Squinting eyes face, you work too hard sometimes. Go get yourself a girlfriend and enjoy your youth. No thanks. Girls are scary. Suit yourself. Come home on the weekend, you can meet my girlfriend. You can bring your roommate if you'd like. I'll ask him once school finishes. Great. Well, let me know, I'll set up a futon in your room. I better get to work, my secretary is yelling at me. Rest up. Have a good day. Midoriya sighed and put his phone down. He felt hot and dizzy. Maybe he had been working too hard at school. As soon as he closed his eyes, he fell into a deep sleep. Recovery girl rung the doorbell to the dorm a couple hours later. Midoriya awoke from the ringing noise that bounced through the dorm. He rolled out of the bed and stumbled out of Todoroki's room. After almost tripping over everything, he opened the door to the dorm. Hello. Did I wake you? She asked. Oh, hello. Yes, sorry. Midoriya mumbled sleepily. He stood aside, inviting her in. She walked into the clean dorm and sat her bag down on one of the chairs. How are you feeling? She asked. I'm fine. You don't have to come see me, don't you have to watch the infirmary? Midoriya asked. I got a new apprentice today that is watching the infirmary for me. Recovery girl explained. I see. Would you like some tea? Midoriya asked. That would be lovely. She smiled. Midoriya boiled the kettle and yawned. Does your head hurt? Have you felt any pain in your arm? She asked. Dunno. I just woke up. Midoriya mumbled. She walked up to him and poked his wrist. He flinched. Of course, touching it would hurt. It takes days for new tissue to form. Midoriya held his arm higher than she could reach. She just smiled. At least your arm isn't numb. She said. I came to disinfect it and give you medicine for your fever. Midoriya poured them both a mug of tea, then sat them at the table. Midoriya sat down. Recovery girl pushed her chair closer, then sat down. Give me your arm. She held out her hand. Midoriya held out his arm. She pulled his sleeve up, then began to unravel the bandage. What's the time? Midoriya asked. It's around 1 p.m. She answered. She reached over to her bag, then pulled out a strange brown wipe. She flipped his wrist over. The deep wound that cut his artery was patched up with a zip stitch, but his other cuts just had micropore tape. She carefully pulled the tape off the older cuts and wiped over it with the brown wipe. They've healed well, she said. Midoriya looked away. He felt ashamed. Recovery girl wrapped his arm back up. She pulled a thermometer out of her bag and handed it to him. Do that for me, I'll find the medicine I got for you, she said. Midoriya stuck the thermometer in his mouth while Recovery girl rummaged through her bag. She pulled out a little container and sat it on the table, then she took the thermometer out of his mouth. You're getting better. You will be fine for school tomorrow. Take 2 of these pills a day until they run out. They boost your RBC production. She pushed the container to him. He picked it up and inspected the ingredients. Okay. Midoriya mumbled. She sipped her tea. And how's everything going for you? She calmly asked. Midoriya flinched, then looked towards her. He put on a smile. I'm fine, he said. Well, since you did that to your arm, I don't think you are fine. She sipped on her tea. Midoriya looked at his arm. I just have nightmares, that's all. Midoriya mumbled. Nightmares? Every night? She asked. Yeah. Midoriya held his cup of tea in his hands. What about the accident? I watch Mom get killed in slow motion, then I get hit by the truck. And everyone blames it on me. Her dead body stares at me and says it's all your fault, it should have been you dead. If only we didn't have to go to your doctor's appointment. Midoriya explained. His hands began to tremble. But did she really say that? Recovery girl asked. No, she was dead at impact, and I was knocked out at impact. Midoriya mumbled. Okay. Well, have you found ways that reduce the severity of the nightmare, or ways to avoid it? She asked. When I sleep in Todoroki's room with him, the company helps. Midoriya said. That's good, that's great. And do you have nightmares when you sleep in his room? She asked. No, not really. Midoriya smiled. I think I find his scent comforting. Recovery girl smiled. The two talked about Midoriya's problems for a while, before Recovery girl left. Midoriya went back to Todoroki's room, and fell asleep in his warm bed. I have been up for a few hours, preparing dinner for Todoroki and doing homework. I received an email saying, you have been allocated an appointment with Mr. Shigaraki tomorrow at 12 p.m. Todoroki had mentioned that name before. The LOV League Evaluation is the rival company of Endeavor and AM. The president's son, Tamura Shigaraki, had committed suicide. I believed the meeting will be about becoming the successor of the business, though I'm not interested at all. I want to do something science-related when I finish school. Todoroki should be back from school soon. Thankfully I'm feeling much better now. I don't remember much from when I was sick, it's just a big blur to me. Though, I feel like there is something important I'm supposed to remember. Around an hour later, Todoroki returned from school. I brought medicine. Todoroki held up a small paper bag. I smiled kindly at him. Thank you, but the school nurse already brought me medicine. I explained. Todoroki looked shattered. Oh, he disappointedly spoke. I'm much better now, thank you for caring for me. I hope I didn't do anything weird. Mum used to say I acted weird when I was sick. I nervously scratched my head. Todoroki stared at me. So you don't remember anything? He asked. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐵. I remember this morning, but I don't remember much about after you woke me up in the infirmary. I explained. So, you don't remember the kiss? He said quietly. An image flashed in my head, of me kissing Todoroki on his floor. My face flushed red. Ah. I remember. Was it me? Did I force a kiss on you? Wait, I've never kissed anyone. Did I tell you that I knew you were gay? Oh no. Wait, I just told you that I knew anyway. I continued muttering, but Todoroki walked up to me and put his hands on my cheeks. Don't worry. We were teasing each other, that's all. Todoroki said with a smile. His smile was appealing. I felt my face heat up and my heart thud in my ears. I must be getting worse. I mumbled. No, you're blushing. He pulled my cheeks. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐵. I stuttered. Todoroki stared lustfully into my eyes. I want to kiss you. Can I kiss you? Todoroki asked quietly. Kiss? I questioned. He leaned in close to me. I closed my eyes. I have never ever kissed anyone before. I don't even think about romance. Your face is cute, he said. I opened my eyes. His face was not even an inch from mine. I bet my face was redder than a tomato. I'd never take your lips without your permission. He pressed his finger on my lips. I pouted. I feel like I wanted that kiss for some reason. Todoroki had a confused expression on his face. Do you want me to kiss you? He asked. Not at all. Not that I don't, but I've just never kissed before. He covered my mouth with his hand. I'd kiss you if you'd let me. He smiled. I said nothing. I wonder what it feels like to kiss. I stared at his lips. They looked soft. Why you promise I won't suffocate? I asked. Suffocate? Why would you? He asked. I don't know how kissing works. Never mind. You can. If you want, if you're okay with it. I was about to mumble more, but he pulled my chin up and pressed his lips against mine. Wait. I haven't mentally prepared myself. He took his soft lips away from mine. When he saw my expression, he smiled as if he'd been seduced. He pushed me into the wall, then kissed me again. The kiss was long enough to steal my breath, but it was given back. I opened my mouth for more air, as what I was getting was not enough. He immediately closed my mouth with his, stealing all my air from me. I felt dizzy but good. The kiss was long and lustful. I didn't want it to end. He took his lips away again and pressed his forehead against mine. I stared into his eyes. I felt strange. I didn't want anyone to take him from me. I wanted to keep him all to myself. My hands slid along his waist until they met around his back. I stood on my tippy toes and kissed him. His lips were so soft, so comforting. The strange sensation of a kiss was the best feeling I've ever had. Todoroki pressed his tongue against my lips. I opened my mouth enough for him to slip his tongue in. Our tongues danced together. I couldn't breathe, but I loved it. It felt so good. Though, the doorbell rang and I nearly had a heart attack. Todoroki pouted and walked over to the door. I slid down the wall when I realized what just happened. Todoroki brought Momo and Mina into the kitchen. Izu, we came to see you 'cause you're sick. Mina grinned. Why is your face so red? She questioned. I glanced at her and Momo, then melted into a puddle on the floor. Nothing. Nothing. I said quietly. Todoroki dragged me across the floor and pulled me into his bed. He kissed me and smirked. You rest up, sick child. I'll be on the balcony with Momo. He mumbled before leaving the room. My face felt like it was on fire. A kiss. A kiss. Midoriya. Mina yelled as she walked in. Triple it. I screeched as I sat up. She walked over and put her hand on my head. Wow, you are warm. Do you want medicine? She asked. I let out a sigh, then rolled out of the bed. I'm fine. I made dinner, are you two staying for that? I asked. Oh, if there's enough. She asked. I looked at her and smiled. Yep. I made enough for 4 so we could have it for leftovers or something. I grabbed her hand and dragged her into the kitchen, then I began setting up the table. There was rice, fish, and a few roasted vegetables. Todoroki. Dinner. I yelled. Momo and Todoroki walked in from my room and the balcony. The 4 of us ate together and had conversations about our days. Of course, mine was rather boring. Apart from kissing. Third person, it was a new day, around 5 in the morning. Midoriya woke up in Todoroki's bed, their faces were almost touching. He blushed and scrambled under the blanket. Todoroki opened his eyes. He could see green strands of hair. Are you awake? Todoroki asked. Yeah. Midoriya mumbled. Todoroki pulled Midoriya out from under the blanket. Midoriya stared at Todoroki's lips and pouted. Why are you making that face? Todoroki pulled Midoriya's cheek. I'm not making a face. Midoriya mumbled. Yes, you are. Do you want me to kiss you? He asked. Midoriya blushed. What logic is that? You were staring intensely at my lips. Todoroki said. So, doesn't mean I want a kiss. Midoriya hid under the blanket. Todoroki tickled Midoriya with a smirk. Stuff. Midoriya laughed. Todoroki didn't stop. Instead, he just smirked as he aggressively tickled the teen. Midoriya weakly attempted to push the taller boy away, but he felt like jelly and couldn't stop laughing. No. I can't breathe. Midoriya barely spat out. Todoroki pulled the blanket off the bed and pinned Midoriya to the bed. Midoriya tried to catch his breath. Don't do that. You evil man. Midoriya scrunched up, covering his vulnerable ticklish areas. You can't escape my wrath. Todoroki smiled. I apologize for my sins. Don't tickle me. Midoriya cried. Then admit that you wanted me to kiss you. Todoroki said. I didn't. I was thinking about when we were interrupted yesterday. Midoriya mumbled. So you wanted to continue then? Todoroki asked. Yeah. Midoriya covered his face with his hands. When we were kissing, I wanted you all to myself. I didn't want anyone else to have you. Midoriya said quietly, but Todoroki heard him loud and clear. Todoroki held Midoriya's hand and kissed it. So maybe you have fallen for my charms. Todoroki teased. I don't know. Midoriya pulled his arms over his face. You say you want me all for yourself. What does that mean? Todoroki asked. I want your warmth and hugs and... Midoriya mumbled something that was inaudible. What was that last part? Todoroki smiled, feeling intrigued. Nothing. Midoriya mumbled. So do you love me then? Todoroki asked. I've never been in love before. Midoriya mumbled sheepishly. Todoroki pushed his leg between Midoriya's legs. Well, we can check, can't we? Todoroki teased. Midoriya gasped and weakly pushed Todoroki. Naughty. Midoriya whispered with a flushed face. You say that, but you're not refusing me. Todoroki held Midoriya's hands, then pushed them into the bed. He leaned in close to the boy's ear. This is love, Midoriya. Todoroki whispered. He gently bit Midoriya's ear. What are you doing? Midoriya tried to pull his hands away from Todoroki's grasp, but failed. Todoroki was about to kiss the boy, but a piercing wake-up alarm forced him to stop. He glared at his phone, then let go of Midoriya's hand and walked over to it. He turned off the alarm. Midoriya quickly sat up. Why are we always interrupted? So annoying. Todoroki grumpily whispered. Midoriya was suddenly standing behind Todoroki. He grabbed Todoroki's shoulder and squeezed it. Todoroki screeched. Did you say? A naughty word. Midoriya growled. I'm sorry, I will never do it ever again, forgive me. Todoroki quickly mumbled, hoping his shoulder would be spared. Midoriya released Todoroki's shoulder and smiled happily. Great. I'll go get changed. Midoriya said as he walked out of the room. Todoroki sighed. When Todoroki walked into the kitchen, Midoriya was cooking up pancakes. If you still don't feel well, take the day off. Todoroki said as he walked up to the teen. Midoriya looked over at him and smiled. I'm fine, plus, I have a meeting today at 12 with the president of the Shigaraki company. Midoriya said. Todoroki flinched. But I don't know, I think he might want me to be his successor. Midoriya shrugged. You're not going to accept, right? That man. He's horrible. Todoroki cautioned. Yes, I know. I'm going to reject him, of course. I don't want to do business. Midoriya put pancakes on plates and served them up. But Todoroki sat down, as did Midoriya. The two of them ate quietly. Todoroki glanced at Midoriya. Hey, do you want to go on a date with me? That way you can figure out your feelings. Todoroki asked. Midoriya looked up at Todoroki and blushed. The date? Midoriya asked. Maybe the weekend. Todoroki smiled. Sounds good. Okay, I'll let you take me out. Midoriya giggled. Oh, do you want to come to my uncle's house on Saturday? He wants me to meet his girlfriend, he told me to bring you. And then Sunday we can go on our date. Midoriya suggested. Sounds like a good plan. Todoroki smiled. It was 12 p.m. Midoriya was waiting in a meeting room in the school for Mr. Shigaraki. He didn't even know the school had a section for meeting rooms. For some reason he felt nervous. Perhaps it was because he was meeting someone high up in the business industry, probably. There was a knock on the door, and then it opened. In walked a business-looking man. He looked like he was in his mid-50s, his hair was partly gray and partly black. His eyes, a crimson red. Midoriya stood up and bowed. Nice to meet you, I am Midoriya Izuku. He said. Likewise. The businessman spoke. The two shook hands. This is my secretary, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Mr. Shigaraki said. Midoriya looked at the door. A man with long purple hair and golden eyes was watching them. He bowed. Nice to meet you, Midoriya-kun. Midoriya bowed. Mr. Shigaraki and Midoriya sat down. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 stood by the door. Midoriya Izuku. You're a first year, and received a perfect score in the entrance exam, yes? Shigaraki asked. Yes, sir. Midoriya said. I'm sure you're aware that presidents of companies often come to UA to find a successor. And since my pathetic son couldn't handle his responsibility, I've come here to meet you. I want you to become the next president of LOV. Shigaraki explained. Midoriya smiled. I assumed so. However, I'll have to politely decline. I don't have an interest in the business field. I'd prefer to work in science. Midoriya explained. Shigaraki put on an angry smirk. Yes, but you see, I don't think you have much of a choice. You shouldn't decline someone as high in society as me. Shigaraki said. In this day and age, everyone has the choice to do what they want. Are you saying our society is no different to the Industrial Revolution? Midoriya smiled. Precisely. All I need is power, Midoriya. Shigaraki slid a sheet of paper across the table. It displayed a biography of his uncle. Izuku Midoriya, your legal guardian. His company is contracted by mine, didn't you know? I fund your uncle's business, he survives off of me. Shigaraki smirked. If you won't become my successor, I could destroy his business. Shigaraki said. Why go to all that effort for a mere child? Midoriya questioned. Because you're smart, and smart is what I need. You're in 3A math, so if you go into 3A business now, you'll be perfect in 3 years. You're bilingual, right? What languages do you speak? Shigaraki asked. English, French, Italian, and Chinese. And obviously Japanese, which is what they are speaking now. Midoriya listed. See, 5 languages at the age of 15. You're better than all kids come, Shoto Todoroki. That brat only speaks Japanese and barely English. And he only got into 2A business. You could go into 3A business. No, you will go into 3A. Shigaraki smirked. Midoriya smiled kindly. Though, he wanted to murder the man for what he said about Todoroki. I told you I refuse. You've been rejected. Midoriya said. That's not one of the options, child. He said. Midoriya sighed and stood up. I think I'm done here. You're more pathetic than I thought. Midoriya said in a serious tone. You can't leave. Do you want your uncle's business to collapse? Shigaraki stood up quickly. Of course not. Which is why I'm reporting you to the police. Midoriya put his hands in his pockets. With what evidence? You think they would believe a child? He spat. Midoriya pulled his phone out his pocket and pressed the screen. A video played. If you won't become my successor, I could destroy his business. Midoriya tapped the screen again. I recorded our full conversation from the start. I hoped I would have done it for no reason, but I guess you really are filthy. Midoriya smiled. Shigaraki looked surprised, then smirked. As expected from the top student. But I told you, power is the best weapon. Shigaraki said. Midoriya walked towards the door. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 stood in front of it. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 launched his fist towards Midoriya's face, but Midoriya ducked. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 grabbed his wrist, then took his phone out of his hand. He let go of Midoriya's wrist, then snapped the phone in half. Midoriya glared at him. What'll you do now? Your evidence is gone. Shigaraki teased. Midoriya looked towards him and smiled. That's okay. There's one thing better than power. Something you lack and I am rich with. If you think my uncle won't believe me, I think you'll find you're wrong. Midoriya explained. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 grabbed Midoriya's wrists and pulled them behind his back. Power, Midoriya. It's all I need. If you tell a single soul, I'll hire an assassin to kill them. Don't think I won't know if you tell. No one would stay quiet if you told them you're being threatened. Shigaraki smiled. Midoriya frowned. So what now? You'll taste me so I don't run and force me to become your successor. Midoriya smiled. Shigaraki looked surprised again. I'm surprised you noticed I have taser. I noticed when I bowed. You have a stun gun, not a taser. Though, I'm not talking about yours. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 will taste me with his. It would be impractical for you to walk all the way over her and use a stun gun when I could kick you in the nuts. Midoriya said. Small explanation. Tasers shoot probes at the target while stun guns deliver the shock at direct contact. Well, you're right anyway. Shigaraki glanced at 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 took his taser out of his pocket, then pressed it to Midoriya's neck. He pressed a button and it shocked him. Midoriya clenched his teeth and collapsed onto the floor. His body had uncontrollable spasms for a moment. So Midoriya, you will become the vice president of LOV at the end of your 3rd year. Tomorrow, apply to take a test to go up to 3A business. I expect an A+ in every business assignment and test. If you tell a single soul, I'll assassinate them. If you betray me, I'll kill everyone you care about and destroy your mother's grave. Shigaraki ordered. Midoriya wanted to protest, but his limbs felt weak and he was busy trying to breathe after being shocked. Why won't you give up on me? Midoriya managed to say. I told you, there's no better successor than you. And it's too late for me to back out now. I find it hard to believe you'd stay quiet about this if we let you go with your own desires. Though, through your trauma with your mother, I'm sure you couldn't stand someone else close to you dying. Shigaraki said. Midoriya said nothing. An email will be sent for our next appointment. Farewell, successor. Shigaraki left the room. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 followed. Midoriya laid aimlessly on the ground. He didn't know what to do and he hated it. He always had an idea, but now he was lost. 3rd-person time passed slowly, but he remained on that floor. No matter how hard he thought. He couldn't come up with anything. He stared at his broken phone. Even if he'd still had the recorded evidence, they still would have threatened to assassinate everyone he cared about if he shared it. iPhones don't have SD cards, so he couldn't retrieve the data. He took the SIM card out of the phone so he could use it in his old phone. It was pointless. He forgot business people could be selfish enough to hire assassins, and it made him furious. He couldn't tell the police. What if they were paid by Shigaraki to dismiss the case, stay quiet, pass information to the company? Boom, everyone is dead. If they weren't paid to keep quiet and pass information to the company. They wouldn't have stayed quiet, files would be made and hackers from the LOV company would have found them. Boom, the end for Midoriya's small drops of happiness and hope. If the police tried to ensure safety to the people Midoriya cares about, heck, maybe they would end up dead too. Boom, unnecessary deaths. Though, he could think of one thing. One way to save everyone, except himself. Unfortunately, he had to go to the last lesson of the day. So he pulled himself up off the floor, then dawdled out of the meeting room. His body felt like jelly, he thought he would collapse. He felt like he was sick all over again. The bell went for the final lesson to start. Damn. He mumbled to himself. He jogged through the long hallways of the school until he finally made it to class 1A. Self-study with Izuku. He slid the door open and walked in late to class. Everyone was chatting amongst themselves. Izuku looked up from his sleeping bag. "Why are you late?" he questioned. "Had a meeting," Midoriya mumbled. He sat down in his chair, then pulled his laptop out of his bag that hung by his desk. He quickly typed away, finishing off all the work he missed at school yesterday and any assignments that he had been given. He then closed his laptop and walked up to the teacher's desk. Izuku looked up at him. "Could you please give me the test to move up to 3A business?" Midoriya asked in a monotone. "Yes, but why do you want to move up?" Izuku questioned. Midoriya sighed and looked away. "Because I'm really interested in business and the 1A course is too easy." He lied. "Why are you lying?" Izuku observed. "Does it matter why I want to go up in business?" Midoriya asked. "No. I'll give you the test tomorrow, then." Izuku mumbled. "Thank you." Midoriya mumbled. "Is something wrong, problem child? You seem stressed." Izuku mumbled. "𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. I'm fine. I just didn't get much sleep last night." Midoriya smiled and chuckled nervously. Then, are you still sick, or is it nightmares?" Izuku asked. I haven't had many nightmares lately. I think it's just insomnia." Midoriya sighed. He didn't like lying and making excuses. He was just stressed because he didn't know how to deal with Shigaraki. Though, for now his best option was to play along. Izuku doubtfully said. Midoriya returned to his seat. He did extensive research in business topics, trying to somewhat prepare himself for the test. He wasn't confident with his knowledge in the business field. He'd never been interested in it. The lesson went slow for Midoriya. He had completely zoned out of what he was doing. He didn't even notice that the bell had rung. Todoroki walked up to him and tapped him on the shoulder. He flinched and looked towards Todoroki. "Oh, sorry. Are you okay?" Todoroki asked. "I'm fine, you just scared me, that's all." Midoriya smiled and closed his laptop. "Are you sure? You seem on edge." Todoroki mentioned. "I'm sure." Midoriya slipped his stuff into his bag and stood up. His body ached from being tossed. Todoroki pressed his hand on the boy's head. "You're a bit warm." Todoroki mentioned. Midoriya shook his head. "I'm fine," he stated. He spun around to leave, but Izuku was standing there. "Don't lie, problem child. Something happened at that meeting, didn't it?" Izuku said. Midoriya let out a sigh. "Nothing happened. I'm just feeling a bit unwell," he mumbled. "Then, don't do homework tonight and rest up for tomorrow. I'll give you a note for incomplete work." Izuku said. "No. I don't have any homework." Midoriya mumbled. "Good, then rest." Izuku looked towards Todoroki. "Make sure he rests." Todoroki nodded and grabbed Midoriya's hand, then dragged him off. Midoriya watched Todoroki's worried expression. It made him feel horrible knowing he was bothering someone again. He so badly wanted to open up and tell him what happened in the meeting, but he couldn't. He feared he would lose another person he loved. When they arrived at their dorm, there was a small parcel sitting by the door. It had Midoriya written on the top. He picked it up while Todoroki opened the door, then they walked in. Midoriya looked at a little card on the parcel while he placed his bag on one of the chairs. "Dear Midoriya, we got you a new phone since your old one is now broken. Use it well. Shigaraki and Kurojuri." Midoriya walked over to the stove and turned it on. He lit the note on fire and watched it burn. "What are you doing?" Todoroki asked in a concerned voice. "Burning the trash," Midoriya replied. Todoroki stared at the teen. Midoriya walked over to the bin, then chucked the parcel in it and walked off to his room. Todoroki stood still in utter confusion. He walked into Midoriya's room and watched as he rummaged through his wardrobe. "Hey, give me your number again." Midoriya mumbled. "But what happened to your phone?" he asked. "It broke beyond use. I've got my old one though," Midoriya said as he pulled his old phone from the cupboard. It was an iPhone but small and old. He put in the SIM card, then got Todoroki's number. "Midoriya, are you sure nothing happened today?" Todoroki asked quietly. Midoriya paused for a bit. He was thinking. Maybe if he thought of a plan he could tell Todoroki. But the image of his mother dying flashed in his head. He couldn't deal with the thought of that happening again. He couldn't bear to lose another loved one. "Nothing happened. I've just been thinking a lot about Mom today," he mumbled with an upset smile. Todoroki sympathized for the teen. "Hey, well, I'll go make up some snacks," Todoroki mumbled as he pulled Midoriya into a hug. "You get changed, try to relax a bit," Todoroki mumbled as he walked out of Midoriya's room. Midoriya didn't move. He was thinking again, thinking about what to do. He glanced over at the picture of him and his mother. They both wore big smiles, expressions that showed their joy. He couldn't smile like that anymore. "Should have been me. Why were you the only one that got to leave? You should have taken me with you. You know, we went everywhere together, Mum," he mumbled as he dawdled towards the picture. "I'm miserable. It's not fair," he whispered. A small tear rolled down his cheek. "Now what? I'm being threatened. Forced to live a life of lies." He stared at his wrists. "I'd rather not." His thoughts were interrupted by the ring of the doorbell. He quickly wiped his eyes, then walked out into the kitchen. Todoroki opened the door. Aizawa was there. Midoriya felt relieved, as if Shigaraki would be standing at the door. "Surprise, homeroom teachers do surprise dorm inspections to make sure you're not trashy," Aizawa mumbled. "Oh, come in then," Todoroki said as he stood away from the entrance. Aizawa walked into the dorm. He had a clipboard in his hand. He glanced over at Midoriya. "Why aren't you resting? You're unwell." Aizawa crossed his arms. "I want to help with dinner," Midoriya mumbled. Aizawa sighed. "Do as you please then. I'm doing inspections." Aizawa walked around and wrote things on the clipboard. Todoroki walked up to Midoriya. "You don't have to help with dinner. You always make dinner, let me do it tonight." "I'll make pork cutlet." Todoroki smiled. Midoriya smiled. "Hey, but I want to study." "Study at the table here." Todoroki tapped the kitchen table. Midoriya nodded and sat down. He pulled his bag off the other chair and opened it. He took out his laptop, then opened it and continued researching business. Todoroki was cooking in the kitchen with a small smile on. He glanced at Midoriya, then got a glass out of the cupboard. He put some ice cubes in it, then filled it with water. He sat it in front of Midoriya. "Here." Todoroki smiled. Midoriya looked up at Todoroki, then at the water. "Thank you." Midoriya smiled. He sipped the water. Todoroki continued cooking. Aizawa walked up to Midoriya. "I thought you had no homework." Aizawa mumbled. "I don't have homework. I'm studying for the business test." He mumbled. "You're not confident with what you know?" Aizawa asked. "I was never interested enough to do extensive study in the business field," Midoriya explained. "Then why would you want to go up to 3A Commerce?" Aizawa asked. "Doesn't matter." He whispered. Aizawa frowned. "Who was you meeting with today?" Midoriya looked up at Aizawa. "Mr. Shigaraki." Aizawa sighed. "Did he do something? He's known for being an... But... He isn't but... I hate him." Midoriya pouted. Todoroki glared at Aizawa. "How dare you teach him a bad word?" Todoroki hissed. Aizawa smirked. "Yeah, Midoriya, he's a thing, but, isn't he?" "Yes. He is if dash." Todoroki slapped his hand over Midoriya's mouth. "If you say a naughty word you'll hate yourself later," Todoroki quickly stated, then he took his hand away. Midoriya glared at Aizawa. "You're using my rage against me, you mean it?" Midoriya folded his arms. "Look, Midoriya, the world is full of nasty words and people use them. Get used to it." Aizawa spat. Midoriya shook his head and looked back at his laptop. "No. Screw naughty words. Aizawa and Todoroki sighed simultaneously.